On to our Logan Municipal Council meeting for today, November 7th. It is 5:30. We're calling our meeting into order. And our opening ceremony today is by Wallace Odd, who is a veteran of the Air Force with 26 years of service. And if you would please come up to the mic and share with us a little bit of your experiences.
It is Veterans Day Saturday.
Thank you, appreciate that. How many veterans do we have in the room, if I may ask? Okay, raise them high. Okay, we've got some veterans. Those,
I have four kids who are veterans.
fantastic, thank you, man. So we know who veterans are. I had a neighbor that said, you know, I'm not a veteran, I always felt bad about that. But you know what, there are a lot of different ways to serve. So we all serve the way we can, and that's what being a veteran is all about. I was asking just a little of my background in the military. I started out with ROTC at Logan High School and went to Utah State ROTC and then into the Air Force Pilot School. Then I went to missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles, air weapons control. Ended up in Eskimo Village for a year, handling SR-71 as we went across. And then into Canada as a squadron commander to the Pentagon and into the White House to help bring up the Office of National Drug Control. So my career varied greatly, but let's not talk about mine. Let's talk about some other people's careers and something that was very inspiring to me. When I was in squadron officer school, I sat on a soccer field with a prisoner of war from Vietnam. And I said, how did you get through that? He said, it was my belief in God, my love of family, and belief in myself. And so we started to really look at that and talk to other veterans and their examples. It's impressive when you hear what these ordinary people do in their lives to preserve our freedom. And they would tell you they're not extraordinary, they're just ordinary people that do things. And that's what it comes down to. Let me bring this a little closer to home. I met with, there was one example I will share with you that I thought was just wonderful. Prisoner of war, Vietnam, in a tiger cage, all had no light. The only light that he had was through a little pinhole, like a nail hole. And he would imagine that he would see the sun come up on the west coast as that light would move across his cell until it would set. And come up in the east and set in the west. And he imagined all the states that sun covered, that light covered, and that's what helped him get through. It's amazing what it takes, the human spirit, the resilience. I want to bring it closer to home. When I was 5 years old, my dad was the commander, the state commander for the state of Utah of the Disabled American Veterans. There's a little song that was written for him before he went to went to World War II. 5 years old, I sang that at the state convention. Later, about 2 years ago, I got a letter in the mail. That letter came from somebody I did not know. I opened it. My dad talked a little bit about his experiences in the war, but not too much at all. Veterans don't do that. We just don't. In that letter, the letter started out, I don't know if I got the right Odd person, because my last name is Odd, and you can take that anywhere you want. And thank you. That's my
That was your fault.
I didn't plan that, I promise. Anyway, I got this letter, and it said, I hope I got the right Odd person, because I had to live with that name. In fact, I was made a flight commander in Alaska, and when they saw that, the guys were scheduling, had fun, they gave me a crew chief, his name was Aaron Ball, and it came out Oddball. So anyway, in this particular letter, the lady went on to say, and a picture fell out, and it was an English artilleryman in full regalia. Beautiful picture. He said, my sister and I would like to thank your father for what he did for our father, or we wouldn't be here. Now, this is years later. My father passed. Dad had carried her dad off the battlefield, saved his life, shoved his service number in his field jacket. They had never communicated. before that time or after that time. Amazing things that are done for our freedom, yours and mine. God bless America, great song. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wallace, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I sure will. I'd love to. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Molly. They really want you.
They really want you. Thank you to all the veterans that have served our nation and that continue to serve. And thank you to all the families that support them and that are there for them as they need us. Next on our agenda, we have the acceptance of the minutes and the approval of the agenda. Any changes that the minutes need?
I would move acceptance of the agenda and approval of the minutes tonight.
I'll second.
Being moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, please say nay. We accepted the minutes and approved the agenda for tonight. And just wanted to let you know, our council member, Tom Jensen, has been excused for today. And just a reminder that our council meetings are on the first and the third Tuesdays of the month at 5:30. And our next meeting will be on November 21st, which happens to be Thanksgiving week, right?
Oh, yeah.
And also Election Day.
And Election Day.
Yeah, so for those that have received your ballots, please don't forget to vote. And that's the important part here. So thank you for being engaged with the elections, and we encourage you to vote and to let other people that receive their ballots to vote as well. Now is the time for anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council or the mayor with items, topics that are not on the agenda for tonight. So if you have something you'd like to come and present to us, please come up to the mic, state your name and your place of residence, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Josh Muller from Logan, Ellis District. I just got a couple of questions that I wanted to ask. One for you, Mark. I was wondering if during being a city council member, have you received directly or indirectly any government contracts with your businesses?
What do you mean contracts?
Contracts, has the government granted you any contracts with any of your businesses?
One business, no.
What's that?
I said one business, no. I'm going through my thoughts to see how many other ones there might be.
It's okay. If you can't figure it out, that's
Maybe
right.
I can address it. I mean,
Yeah.
we do not prohibit employees from shopping at Anderson Seed, if that's what you're asking.
No, I'm just wondering, because I've heard and read some things on government contract. So,
And we do bid things out periodically. I don't know, I mean, the word contract is maybe the thing that's a little problematic,
okay.
but just defining
I see.
when that is, you know.
We've done some work for for the city, and we do have city employees that come and purchase from us, but we don't have really any contracts. So that was my confusion.
Okay, no problem. Also, I'm still really concerned about the Woodsonia project. I'm concerned about the company as it is. It's, this company's been around for less than 3 years. I think it's a very reckless thing. I was there at the school council meeting at the Logan
That one's
council
on the
meeting.
agenda for our.
And was and witnessed, it's something that was really, really, it's, sorry, I'm getting,
Josh, may I interrupt you?
Yeah.
We do have part of that item on the agenda during the redevelopment agency
oh, for tonight?
for tonight.
Oh, okay.
So if you'd like to reserve your comment for that time,
It's not a public hearing.
it's not a public hearing, so we
Oh.
can go ahead and
You
listen.
get to express, what you'd like to express.
Okay, can I get my minutes back
Yes,
for
go
that?
ahead.
Right. I was there, Polly, I was actually sitting in front of you when you got up and solicited it for the Woodsonia group. By my research, what I witnessed was literally misuse of position. And this is Title 5, 2638.702. The misuse of position. An employee may not use his public office for his own private gain or for that of persons or organizations with which he is associated personally. An employee's position or the title should not be used to coerce, to endorse any product, service, or enterprise, or give the appearance of government sanctions. So getting up and actually doing that is I mean, we, even at a municipal level, we still have to abide by federal regulations. So I'm just wondering, actually what I'm wondering is what is so important about this Woodsonia project with a company that comes from Nebraska, that we're so willing to put so much money in REA funding into this group. They've only been around for less than 3 years. And we're willing to invest all this into a really, really, I mean, this project is reckless and careless. If you have gone on Main Street and actually had to deal with traffic on a daily basis, you would understand that putting that many people on that corner is reckless.
Thank you, Josh. Time's up.
Thank you.
My name's Erin Bennett. I live on the southwest side of town, and I have a question about the plastic waste management that was codified into law in December of 2021 in lieu of the plastic bag ban. Part of that was that we were going to be charging 10 cents a bag after the waste management was codified, but it's been almost 2 years and we still don't see that. Now, we had the forum a few weeks ago during which the host and also Jeannie and Mark said that the state passed a bill banning plastic bag bans. That's actually not true. That bill died on the House floor. So there is a correlation between microplastics in the environment and reproductive health of men, children, and that's being completely ignored. The less plastic we have in the environment, the less microplastics we have in the environment, and the safer our children are for generations. And I think we should make decisions based on facts and data. Also, we're representing Logan City residents who were in favor largely of the ban, which is why it passed the first time. We don't represent, grocery stores in the county. We represent Logan City residents. And a lot of us, it codified into law. I don't understand why we only follow some laws. Speaking of civil rights, wherever that gentleman went, this is America, and things should be applied autonomously in America. Not just, things like that, but also crimes that are committed against residents should be adjudicated equally. Also, people who commit crimes that are friends with the mayor should be charged with those crimes. That's all, thank you.
So I can speak to the plastic bag ban. It actually was rescinded. The plastic bag ban that
Yeah,
you're
but it was-
referencing was rescinded.
But-
So it's no longer an active ordinance. It was tied in with issues with all of our waste management across the county.
Yeah.
So prior to its implementation date,
Right.
it was rescinded. So
And part of
I
that-
appreciate
part of that
this is
rescinded
not a point.
process,
This is not a time to argue, Karen. I'm
Except that-
identifying, I'm answering your question about
What I'm
why are we
telling
not
you-
enforcing a law that's on the books. It is not on the books.
Yes,
It was never
replaced
on
with
the
the
books.
plastic waste management program. And in the plastic waste management program, which you're not listening to me, we're supposed to be charging 10 cents a bag. That was in the
I
management
don't think you're
program.
understanding what I'm saying, and maybe we can talk about this outside of the meeting, okay?
Well, what?
I'd be happy to talk to you about it outside of the meeting
So-
and explain to you what happened. I could show you the documentation. We could talk about it after the meeting.
Well, why don't, I want to have less plastic in the environment. How do we get to less plastic in the environment? All of these little things that they're not relevant. What is relevant is less plastic in the environment and protection for our children's reproductive health for generations to come. Do you understand?
The time is up. I can also mention that the management program that was put in place was to get, the time is up for your comments.
Okay, we talked about it for
Time is up
2
for your
years.
comments.
For 2 years, we talked about it, and then you guys
Please
sneak a
respect the
thing in to get
process.
rid of it. We want less plastic in the environment. Whatever you gotta do to make that happen, do your goddamn jobs and do it. Your citizens want
Please respect the process.
Please respect
You know
the
what? This is
process.
America, and I can say goddamn if I want. I can actually say fuck if I want to in America.
I'm going to ask you to
Yeah.
actually leave the chamber of,
Oh, you can't kick me out. This is America.
Yes, we
Is he gonna
can.
kick me out, or are you gonna kick me out? See? Welcome to America.
It's,
if you can follow the process and show respect, we're more than happy to
You
stay
guys
here.
show respect. Are you kidding me?
We're showing you
It's
respect.
reciprocal. We want less plastic in the environment. Why do we have to go to these lengths to get less plastic in the environment? Why can't you just listen to residents and be like, yeah, let's charge 10 cents a bag? Actually, we can call
Okay,
stores.
your
and ask-
public comment time is over. Anyone else that wishes to address the council?
I've thought for the last little bit, my name is Marilyn Griffin, by the way, that I should come and thank you all for putting the light on 7th North and 2nd East. That flashing light has been a benefit to the neighborhood. Everyone is thrilled, and I want to thank you for having the money, proportioning the money, and putting that light there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Keaton Papke. I live in Logan City. I'm here to voice my opposition to the proposed project at the mall. And I'm in favor of communication, which I've been seeing from Logan City as developers and whatnot. And the Logan residents. I do not believe that city council meetings are the medium or the venue to continue discussions, because as you've seen one time in my personal experience, things get heated, there's not enough time, people get pushed out, and then everyone feels that their voices aren't heard. So I don't think city council meetings are the way to continue any discussion with that property. And then second, it seems like there's a secrecy involved with the retailers that come in. Like we the citizens aren't told who's coming in until a certain point of the process has passed. I think Costco is an example where no one in the valley knew it was going to be a Costco. There were certainly rumors, it could be a Target, whatever. I think that that's likely to happen with the retailer that will come in with this proposed project. I mean, right now, we've had 20 years of rumors that Logan's getting a Target. So I think as citizens of Logan, we should be told who the retailer is, instead of, oh, okay, points passed. They no longer can we receive any objections for it. Let me finish. I'm not against revamping that site. I understand the reasons for it. I am against proponents. Oh, sorry, before I go there, I've watched Logan grow. I've been a resident for 15 years. I've seen the south end go from abandoned houses and empty fields to what it is today. I agree with that. I think that was a good move. Renovation of the current old Albertsons property, I think, is a great move. Putting Costco on 10th West to alleviate traffic in town, fantastic. I disagree with elements of the project in the mall, which is why I'm here, and mainly have to do with the high-density apartment community. It's not the place. The high-density apartment complex is not going to solve our housing problems in the valley. It will be an eyesore, and I don't care how much landscaping you throw up around it. It's just going to be an eyesore, and it's going to be a management issue. Plastic garbage, waste, garbage removal, everything. Traffic is a concern. If you have an apartment complex of 450 or 425, you are averaging at least another 300 cars on the streets that are already congested. Taking kids to school, so you're adding congestion in an area that's already terrible.
The time is up.
My time is up, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
What's your last name, Keaton?
Bapke.
Thank you.
Anyone else that wishes to address the council? The mayor? All right, thank you, everyone. Next up in our agenda, we have mayor and staff reports.
Great, and the first item on our agenda tonight is Open and Public Meetings Act training that's required by the state annually, and Craig Carlson, our city attorney, will do that. And then following that, we'll go as far as the Logan City School District update. We'd like to welcome Superintendent Frank Schofield, and I also see 3 of our school board members here today, Greg Miller, the chair, Larry Williams, and Frank Stewart. We welcome them to our meeting and appreciate your attendance, and we'll go that far, and then we'll go to item C. So Craig and then Superintendent.
Thank you. And just one quick clarification. The Municipal Employee Ethics Act permits employees and elected officials to contract with the city so long as there's disclosure, just so that's clear. The Public Meetings Act, as the mayor mentioned, the state code requires us to get this once a year. You're all very familiar with this act and understand that there was a change that I'll mention in the act. And I'll highlight just a few things. A meeting, well, first let's remember the public policy behind the act. The public bodies should take their actions openly and conduct their deliberations openly. A meeting is defined as the convening of a public body with a quorum present for the purpose of discussing, receiving comments from the public about, or acting upon a matter over which the public body has jurisdiction or advisory power. A meeting does not include a chance or social gathering. That those things should not be used to circumvent the act. Public notice for the meeting, this is where the change has been made. Now, notice must be given at least 24 hours from the meeting, that's the same, but Class A notice needs to be given. And so that's given by putting the notice on the Utah Public Notice website, the city's website, and at a public location. No longer is it required to be put in the newspaper. Item raised by the public, but not on the agenda, they can be discussed, but no action taken. Closed meeting. The closed meeting may be held if a quorum is present. The meeting starts out as an open meeting, then 2/3 of the members vote to approve the closing of the meeting. And then the reasons for the meeting being closed also need to be entered into the record. Disruption of meetings, individuals can be removed and also council members can be removed from a public meeting if they willfully disrupt the meeting to an extent that orderly conduct is seriously compromised. There is a 2/3 vote required to remove somebody. So that's a little refresher. Any questions?
Questions?
Thanks.
No questions.
All right,
Thanks, Craig.
Superintendent.
So Craig, you send that into the state that we've all participated, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Tom participated. We're not.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate the chance to see that. We, with the school board, we have to do these trainings annually as well. So thank you for taking the time to stay caught up on some of those legal issues. I appreciate the chance to come and, as we do once a year, at the invitation of the mayor, come and visit with the city council just a little bit about things that are going on in the school district. Some of the projects that are going on, and just give you a window into some of the things that we're celebrating. So first, just a quick overview of where we are right now. We have 5,416 students in our district. As you know, we have our 2 preschools, Riverside Preschool, which is focused on students with special ed needs, cognitive disabilities, and our Early Childhood Center, which is our Title I preschool, and that's in the facility over by the fairgrounds. We have our 6 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and our high school. Out of our student body right now, as we look at the makeup of our students, about 50% of our students are of ethnicities other than white, and about 50% of our students right now are they come from backgrounds of poverty, so they qualify for free and reduced lunch. We are extremely fortunate to have, even with those students, one of the things we've seen over the last couple of years, we're seeing an increase in the number of students who come from refugee backgrounds. There's a number of students who've spent time in refugee camps, and their families are coming here to find better opportunities, whether those are tied to safety and physical health, or they're tied to economic or educational opportunities. We're seeing more and more of these students come to our community, and with the status that Logan has right now, we're seeing more of those refugees coming directly as they arrive in the U.S. and not going through Salt Lake first. So this creates some unique opportunities, some challenges, but also a great opportunity for our students and our staff to work with highly involved and dedicated students from around the globe who end up coming to our community. Our mission as a district, as you see there, is to ensure all students leave our schools ready to create a positive future for themselves and their community. We know that these students, some of them are going to pursue a 4-year college university track, after they get out of high school. Others are going to look for industry certifications and go into manufacturing or any number of trades. Some are going to go into the military, while others are going to pursue apprenticeships that allow them to be entrepreneurs. We have a number of students, for example, in our Latinos in Action Club at the high school, who are working so they can go on to college, get business degrees, and strengthen the family business that their parents currently run. So they're looking to build on those skills of entrepreneurship, of free enterprise, and get an education that allows them to develop the skills that move them in that direction. We recognize our role as a district is not to tell students which of those paths they need to follow, but to help them develop the attitudes, the behaviors, and the skills that will allow them to be successful regardless of which path they take, and help them tie in with individuals who can support and help them. A few more celebrations. Our graduation rate last year at Logan High was 91.2%. That is about a 20% increase from what we saw at the height of the pandemic. The pandemic had a horrible effect on high school graduation rates across the country, and Logan High was no exception. We saw a lot of disengagement, a lot of withdrawal from school for many reasons, and the administration and staff at the high school have put a tremendous amount of effort into turning that around and working closely with students and their families to get them back on track. So that graduation rate is something we're very proud of. If you've seen in the paper, we have 3 National Merit Scholar semifinalists at Logan High School right now. Outstanding students, and we're looking forward to seeing how their applications go and how far in that selection process of being finalists they get to go. We are very excited about our employee compensation package. Due to a combination of help from the legislature, work that our school board has done, and the finalizing of some of the RDAs that we've done in conjunction with Logan City, we are able to have the 3rd highest starting teacher salary in the state of Utah in Logan right now. That doesn't happen without those collaborations. So I do want to say thank you to you all as a city council and leadership for helping us get there, because without those RDAs and the development that comes to the community and the additional tax revenue that then provides to our schools, we wouldn't have been able to provide that support to our teachers, which then allows us to recruit and hold on to teachers longer, which then increases the services that we provide to students in our schools. So thank you. You all played a direct role in that. Excuse me. We're celebrating we have highly engaged employees. We partner with the Gallup organization to survey our employees and work with our administrators on things they do to create a highly engaging workplace. We just did that survey with our staff last week, over the last 2 weeks, and are now going through the data. But every year we see that level of engagement, that level of morale go up. It's on a continuously upward trend, which allows us to do some really innovative things. Our staff are very invested in these. One of them is the Aggie Up initiative. This is part of a partnership that we're working on with Utah State University to help students, particularly first generation college students, identify early on their interest in going on to Utah State and developing their identity as an Aggie. So we're working with second semester ninth graders, looking at their first semester grades, and we're planning activities where those students and their parents will go up to Utah State, they'll tour the campus, meet people up there, and talk about, okay, here's the program, and here's how this process over the next 3 years will prepare you to be a successful student at Utah State University. And then we'll be able to, we have a course sequence that will move through from there through senior year. It's modeled off a program that the University of Utah uses with Alta and Jordan High School. It's called Step to the U. But that's something we're very excited about, that our staff have been involved in putting that proposal together. And then our early literacy growth, some of you have seen this information, but through another partnership with the Center for the Schools of the Future at Utah State, we've been working with our elementary teachers on improving the quality of our instruction in early literacy. We know that a student's ability to read fluently by the end of third grade has a significant impact on the rest of their school experience, how successful they are going into middle school, high school, and beyond. So it starts in kindergarten. So in collaboration with Utah State, our elementary teachers went through a significant amount of additional training, changing their classroom practices, and last year, our growth rates for our kindergarten literacy were the highest in the state by a significant margin. We're talking 96% of kindergartners reading on grade level before the end of the year. And we're seeing that transition into this year's first grader. So it's not, you think, okay, well, did we do a really good job of juicing the test? And they just did awesome. But we're seeing those skills transfer, and they're carrying over into the next year. What that has the potential to do, if we have 95+% of students at the end of third grade reading on grade level, they're in a position for them to carry that through. And right now, for example, you might have in a sixth grade class, I'll give you an example. When I was a middle school principal in another community down in Salt Lake Valley, we would have about 50% of our incoming sixth graders reading significantly below grade level. So we had to dedicate a large amount of our resources to remediation and developing those basic skills. When we don't have to do that, the energy and the focus can go into the higher level rigor that we want students to get out of their school experience. And that's what we're seeing in terms of the direction that this is going, it's taking us.
How do you think the full day kindergarten is going to impact that?
It's going to be great, because what we're seeing with full day kindergarten is the amount of instruction doesn't change, but you're able to re-emphasize it in different ways. So generally what we see, because we have some families that choose not to do full day kindergarten. So we do the key instruction in the morning, and in the afternoon, it's much more play-based learning, a lot more of those types of activities. So you're just reinforcing the content that was taught in the morning, but you're doing it in ways that are developmentally appropriate for a 5-year-old. Because you're not going to ask a 5-year-old to do a full day of hardcore academics. It's just not the way to go. But we found there are so many ways to reinforce the academics through the day that they just get a lot of practice. Now, that first week of full day kindergarten is challenging. I actually love going into classrooms just to seeing it, because you'll go in after lunch and they've got a video on, and their kids just sprawl out like they're done. It's like, we need to breathe and take a break. But the teachers, they work them through that. And it's been outstanding. It's been incredible to see what those children are capable of, not pushing them beyond where a 5-year-old should be, but to seeing what they're truly capable of and how that sets them up on a trajectory for the rest of their school experience. If you ever want to come see a full day kindergarten class, just let me know. They are such fun places to be, to watch those kids.
It's like riding with the police department.
So really briefly, here's just a chart that shows a little bit of the growth that we're seeing. This is based off the most recent state report card for the school district. The categories you see at the bottom there are critical needs, developing, typical, commendable, and exemplary. I probably should have flipped those. I apologize for that. Critical needs being the lowest level of performance and exemplary being the highest. You look at the achievement, you'll see that we're generally in the typical or developing. So our schools, they're doing okay. They're doing fine compared to other schools across the state, doing okay. If you look at the level of growth that students are experiencing in our schools, and this is not just students who are on the low end of the academic spectrum. This looks at students across the spectrum of abilities. Your students who are struggling academically and your students who are excelling academically. All of our schools are in the commendable or the exemplary stage in terms of how much growth a student makes during their time in the Logan City schools. Our EL progress, that's our English learners, you can see this is an area where we do have a couple of critical needs that we're working on, particularly at the secondary level. Some of these are students who they come to us as teenagers, so they're learning the language a little bit later in life, so there are some additional challenges with that, but that's an area that our schools are working specifically on. How do we provide some additional support and resources there? There's been a lot of talk about attendance. You will see consistent attendance is something that we are working on. Statewide, nationally actually, but we'll just talk about Utah, there is a challenge with getting students to school. In fact, there was an article in the Deseret News, I believe just earlier this week, that said they did a survey, 94% of parents say that regular school attendance is important. About 27% of students in Utah are chronically absent, which means they're missing 10% or more of the school days during the school year. So consistent attendance, these are the students who have less than 8% absence. So you're getting 92, 93% attendance. And you can see, I mean, we have some room to grow there. So we're doing a lot to encourage attendance, working with parents, working with students, help them understand the importance of regular school attendance. We are limited in terms of the consequences we can put in place for truancy based on some elements in the state law and what the research tells us helps with attendance. But it is something that we are continuing to work on to help students and parents understand that a little bit better. Just an update on our Phyllis facilities. Progress continues forward on our Outdoor Learning Center. That is the old USU forestry camp. We have built, or we're in the process of building a mess hall, which will allow for accommodations of a large number of students up there. We're working with different organizations to plan instructional activities. We currently have our environmental science club at the high school that has trail cams up there, so they've caught their images of moose, cougar, deer, all sorts of things, and we're planning on that as an area where we can do place-based learning for students across the grade levels. It's only a 20-30 minute bus ride up, so it'll be readily accessible for our students. We're excited for that to keep moving forward. The indoor athletic facility at Mount Logan, the facility formerly known as the Municipal, we were looking at making that a pool facility, and it simply was not practical. That wasn't a feasible project. But we do have a need, both with our students and in our community, for some indoor practice spaces. So what we're doing is we're in the process of designing a turfed surface that will go in the main area. So that will be something that our spring sports can use when we have winters like we did last year, where they can start getting some practice time. Through grants with the state, we've done some enhancements to the Family Resource Center. This is the house that we own over by Wilson Elementary on the island. This is where we provide services for our migrant and our homeless students. With the upgrades, we have laundry facilities there, we have changing facilities. We're upgrading one of the restrooms to make it ADA accessible so families can bathe their children there, and increasing some of the utility of some of the space, so when families come to us, It's a better environment. We use that kind of as the connection hub where we can send families to Cash Food Pantry when there's a need. We help them connect with Bragg, employment services, et cetera. So the services, the direct services we provide to families at that site are limited. It's primarily a service center where we help them through the school get tied into other community resources that are available. And we've done some recent upgrades to both the Early Childhood Center and the Riverside Preschool. Just both buildings needed some upgrades. We would still like to add on to the Early Childhood Center. Construction costs have they rose to a point that we had to press pause. That was getting very expensive. So it's a wonderful facility, outstanding programs going on there, and we do plan to add on to it once we can get a place where it's a little more affordable. I want to close with this image. This is from this last year. You may know that the day of graduation rehearsal, we take our seniors around and they go to the elementary school that they attended or the elementary school that their siblings attend, and they walk through the halls. And the elementary students are in the hallways and they clap and give them high fives and cheer. And it's a great opportunity. Some of these students get to see their first grade teachers. And a first grade teacher, you never know if the child you teach in first grade is actually going to graduate. You hope they will. But first grade teachers don't usually get that experience. They don't get to see the end result. So it's a fantastic opportunity for our students. It's a great opportunity for our teachers. Lots of tears, lots of hugs, lots of photos being taken. This one is unique for me. This was at Woodruff Elementary. And the custodian at Woodruff, Lisa Jensen, would go through the old elementary school yearbooks. And she started this, and a number of schools do it now. But she put together a video that put the pictures from this graduating class into a slideshow. And they would have that playing while the students walk through. In past years, that video has been playing, and the students, they walk the halls, and they go out, and they get on the bus, and they go over, and they walk the halls of Mount Logan. This group of students all stopped in the front entry of Woodruff Elementary, sat, knelt, and stood together, and watched the video. And what it showed me was what happens when you have a group of caring, committed people who are not only invested in teaching kids reading, writing, and math, they're invested in creating a sense of community and a sense of connection. And these students all hung out together and smiled and laughed and cried as they looked at pictures from themselves in elementary school and then reflected on the shared experiences they had had since then. Parents, of course, are there. You see them wiping their eyes. Principal Guyman is standing in the back. He has been their principal from kindergarten through senior year. He was at Woodruff, he then followed him to Mount Logan, and then he was at Logan High. So even he's not the most emotional guy. Even he was getting a little emotional. But that is one of the things I celebrate about the chance to be here in Logan and in this community. And I've worked in a larger district, I've worked in larger communities. That sense of being tightly knit and being together is a hard thing to create. And I celebrate our parents and our students and our staff for what they do to allow that to happen and to allow so many students to feel not only did they graduate and get a diploma, but they graduated as part of a group and part of their friends. And that's what we try to do in the district. So thank you for your support. Be happy to answer any questions you have about anything that I've put up or anything that you've been thinking, Frank, you should have spoken about this.
So how much utilization has happened with the Family Resource Center? Has that been, I'm just curious. I appreciate that it's there, first of all, but.
Yeah, it's constantly, the appointment slots are constantly filled. Yeah, we have 2 staff who work there. We applied for a state grant to get a 3rd individual. That individual probably, until we finish some of the basement renovations there to increase the office space, will probably be housed at the district office for a while. But those staff members have constant appointments where families come in and they might be coming in to do laundry, and then we work with them. Okay, what are you doing to talk with the parent liaison at your child's school, or how are you doing with food? Do you need a food voucher? Et cetera. So it's used quite a bit.
Do any of that staff speak another language besides English?
All of them speak Spanish. They're all native Spanish speakers.
Great.
None other than that. It would be great if we spoke some other languages as well, but the employee pool for some of those is shallow. Okay, thank you.
You mentioned the RDA, and there were 3 that just wrapped up. How much new income did that generate for the school district?
Oh, let's see, I leave that to our BA, but let me tell you, I think that 465. Okay. This is the wonderful thing about having numbers people on the board as well.
Yes.
They remember that very specifically. About 465,000 came from those.
Per year.
Yeah, per year going forward. Yeah, based on whatever happens with property taxes.
Additional.
Additional, yeah, that was new revenue, and that made a huge difference. So for example, in our district, $100,000 is approximately, it's close to a 1% COLA. So there you're talking about a 4%, cost of living increase for all employees, just based off that. That's without anything that came from either the district's management of money or the state allocation from the legislature. So that money from the RDA does make a tremendous difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent, and also glad to have the board members with us. And we do appreciate your support of the most recent RDA, which is the mall CRPA, and we'll have the final vote on our council's portion of that in the redevelopment agency meeting at the end of this one. So again, it's been a good partnership. Just one quick board reappointment. We do have Eric Elison.
I'm just trying to find my file. Where'd my dump drive go?
Eric Elison has served on the Parks and Rec Board for 1 term. He is willing to serve again. He's a great resource because he's also on the County Open Space Committee, so which is going to be involved in some trails as well. So I would ask for a ratification from the council members to reappoint Eric to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
I would so move.
I'll second.
I wanted to say I've had the pleasure of interacting with Eric quite a bit in Parks and Rec, and it's been great to hear his insight in many areas, not just Parks and Recreation.
Very qualified person.
Yes, very qualified. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All against, please say nay. Eric has been ratified.
Great, thank you. And the final item is I just wanted to bring this card to your attention. There are a number on the table out as you walk in, and I've given some to council members. The Utah League of Cities and Towns has these co-branded cards with Unite's Dignity Index. Some of you may know Tammy Pfeiffer, who was on our city council a number of years ago. She now is very involved in this organization that is trying to promote sort of civility in politics and, cooperation, working together, listening to each other to try and find the values that we share. And again, being reasonable and polite in meetings. So again, and Governor Cox has also started an initiative called Disagree Better through the National Governors Association. So I think Utah is leading out in these efforts to, again, collectively foster dignity and respect so that we can face challenging issues in our community. So invite you to take that. You're welcome to distribute some to others, but help get that message out. And thank you again. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, we have a Planning Commission update.
Planning Commission did not meet, so there is nothing to report.
You have lots to talk about next meeting, right?
Well, they have 6 items on the agenda, so it'll be busy. Yep.
6 items. All right. Next up, we have our action items for tonight. It looks like we have 3 action items. And one of them has been continued to our meeting in December.
Do we have to vote on that?
Do we have to approve that?
It's on the agenda, so let's vote to do that.
Okay. I move we continue the rezone of ordinance 23-33 to December 5, 2023.
I'll second that. And that was at the developer's request.
Yes.
To postpone that.
It's been moved and seconded to continue ordinance 23-33 to December 5th. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All against, please say nay. So we continue this ordinance to December 5th.
Can I just add something? Thanks to that, there's been several citizens that have already contacted us with their perspectives on that. So thank you for doing that. And please continue to do so on that for our
Yes.
meeting in December.
Next up, we have a public hearing for ordinance 23-32 regarding moderate income housing code changes and efforts. So, Mike, would you please?
Yeah, I'll just give you a brief summary. I sent you in your packet, you got a copy of the materials from last time. I'm just going to go through and highlight the 3 actual code amendments. This is ordinance 23-32. Lists all the different chapters in the land development code that are proposed for amendment. So there's 3 elements to this action. One is a density bonus for moderate income housing. One is a micro living unit housing language that would facilitate that. And then the third one is increased residential occupancy across the board. So the reason why we're here, the purpose of these amendments is to implement regulatory changes to encourage more moderate income housing. And then the purpose of tonight's review and this whole review process is to evaluate whether these proposals actually, in your opinion, as the elected officials, would encourage more moderate income housing, or whether there's regulatory changes will have significant negative consequences. And that's why we do this public process. So this is all rooted in our moderate income housing plan we adopted in 2022. The 5th goal looks at short-term regulatory changes that we could implement. And this is part of the approach that we took, some short-term, medium-term, long-term, and these are some of the shorter-term things we're trying to do, to look at, to evaluate, to see if these will make some sense in the short-term framework. This is all mandated by the state under LUDMA, and if we don't comply with what our moderate income housing plan has or the state requirements, then we jeopardize our state transportation funding. So the first code amendment is moderate income housing density bonuses, and the proposal is to increase, to basically allow for a density bonus of 25% if you provide at least 5% of those units, your total units as deed-restricted units serving residents below 50% AMI. And this is applicable in the MR9, MR12, MR20, MR30, TC2, and commercial zones, so basically the higher density zones, and on project sites larger than 3 acres. This program doesn't waive any of the requirements. So if you got a density bonus, you still have to meet parking requirements, setbacks, building height limitation, landscaping, things like that.
Why not in mixed use, Mike?
It's already there.
Okay, that's what I thought, but.
Yeah, so this number, this percentage is based on what we have in mixed use currently.
Okay, perfect.
So here's what it looks like when you kind of lay it out mathematically. So for example, mixed use right now, the base density is 20 units to the acre. So 60 units is your base unit count for a 3-acre project site. 15 units would be your bonus. Total would be 75, and your income restricted units would be 4. So last time we had some discussion about, well, what about less of a bonus, more income restricted, and this is kind of what you get in terms of that spread. So second amendment.
Go back to that slide.
Sure.
So the second one is 20%? The second?
20% bonus, but then it's at 10%.
10% income restricted. You have to have higher percentage of income restricted units.
Yeah, so the top part of the chart is what's being proposed. And the last discussion we had in the workshop, the question was, why didn't we change this to go to a lesser density bonus but more income restricted development?
Right.
So this just shows you the spread. So you look at MR9, under the proposal, if you did the density bonus, you get 34 units with 2 income restricted. Modifying it, you would get 32 units with 3 that are income restricted. So it just changes that ratio a little bit. And the reason why the approach on why it's only 5% is that the assumption going into it is that when you build housing for low or very low income residents, your return is really not what you get from market rate units. So you somehow have to subsidize that. And developers in the business make money. I mean, that's a given, right? They're in there to make money. If they can't make money doing it, they're not going to do it. So you got to give enough carrot to get that behind it.
But this particular proposal is for 80% of AMI, correct?
No, this is 50%.
Well, it says right here, moderate income housing, affordable housing units on project sites larger than 3 acres. Residential density bonus of up to 5 additional units per acre may be granted. At least 5% of total residential units are designated as affordable, serving residents who are at or below 80%. So is this different than, this is just mixed use? Never mind. Never mind.
Okay.
So it's the same percentage as the mixed use, but it's a different income level.
Correct.
So,
And that was based on the planning commission's recommendation to go to this 50% of AMI.
50% AMI.
so it's not available in a mixed-use project. We're doing 80% mixed use and 50% everywhere else? Is that correct?
Just the targeted income range is different in these other zones than it is in mixed use. Mixed use, as you just currently read, is 80% AMI.
Okay.
The proposal is to target the low income at 50% or less.
Okay.
On sites that are not mixed use?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? Okay, so the second part of the amendment is micro living units, and these are literally small micro units, 150 to 400 square feet, studio or 1 bedroom, fully functioning, accessibly compliant kitchen and bathroom. They're generally a third the size of a typical apartment. And this proposal excludes single room occupancy types of units. That phrase is in the state code is one of the strategies, but I think when you're in a university town or college town, you really want to avoid that because that creates a different kind of living environment. So we originally labeled these as efficiency living units, but we went to micro living units just as a kind of a distinction from the building code. So the standards for this is put them near employment and transit, and in the denser zones, MR 20, 30, TC1, 2, commercial or mixed use. They've got to be located within a quarter mile of Main Street or locate near a business or institution employing more than 100 people and within a quarter mile of a transit stop or bike ped. So I showed you last time a map of like the hospital. And basically the hospital's a big employer, kind of draw a ring around, there you go. This looks at, if you're doing these types of units, it's got to be a mix of incomes. At least 25% has to be at 30% or less of AMI, and no more than 25% of units are market rate. So it gives you a pretty wide swing in the middle. The language also includes the ability to convert existing unutilized hotels and motels to commercial space, but only in the TCU, commercial, and mixed use zones. And this is the equivalent of what they did at Bill 364, which is just by map. So.
You have the ELU really should be micro living. That's just the old language right there.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, and we talked last meeting, so the commercial is still a requirement of this. They have to have the commercial on the lower floor.
No, this gets away from that. What we're trying to do is recognize, like in the case of an old hotel, they generally don't have commercial in there. And this is one of the issues with Bill 364 is they're putting office space on that lower level along the street frontage.
So it's really not, it's not generally commercial.
Office space will comply with the use chart, but the idea is recognize you've got these underutilized facilities that could be turned into housing.
Okay. So in the micro living units in TC2 would not have to have a commercial requirement on the lower level.
That's the intent of this, correct?
Okay.
For located near an employer of more than 100, what does near mean?
Within a quarter mile.
So same as the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why was Main Street identified as one of the, where it has to be located? I'm just up within a quarter mile of Main Street, when I thought we were looking for transit oriented and bike ped oriented and employment center oriented.
I think it says
So why is the Main Street part in there?
Well, this gives you two options for location. One is along Main Street, which is transit. It's got the highest number of bus stops, a large number of employers within that corridor. And then the second way to look at it is putting it near a business that's also a big employer, but also within transit. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility in terms of location. And the idea was not to say, well, put this up in Hillcrest or Cliffside or Woodruff, but put it near where people who can live here don't necessarily need a car. They have access to either bus service or a bicycle.
But most of our employers who employ more than 100 people are in the industrial zone.
Yeah, and in some cases, that's probably appropriate, but in other cases, it's not. So I don't think you want to put this out off of 10th West and 1800 North when there's not a bus stop out there. So it is limited in the applicability where you can put it.
Okay.
So
in theory, a business, someone could ask for a rezone to one of the appropriate zones if it was out near an industrial, if it wasn't zoned to fit micro, correct?
They do need the zoning and the location.
Yeah.
So quarter mile apparently is about 4 blocks. Is that
About 2 blocks.
2 blocks, not 4 blocks?
About a 600-foot block times 2, 1,200, give or take. So these are also, the theory behind this is there's a maximum occupancy of 2 people per unit because of the size. And there's a size range, 150 to 400 square feet. And if you remember last time I showed you a slide, how this compares to like Mill Creek, their typical apartment size is basically 3 of these. And so this also has a density, not necessarily a bonus, but equivalency of 2 of these. 2 of these types of units would be equivalent to 1 dwelling unit. So the theory is you pack more of these into the same kind of targeted space or targeted density you could in the inland zone. Also requires you get common indoor space, separate storage for each unit, covered block bike storage for each unit, and then the minimum parking is 0.75 stalls per unit. No transit occupancy, and this doesn't cover like tiny home and residential neighborhoods.
So micro units are allowed in TC1? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the conversion of underutilized hotels, motels is not permitted in TC1.
Okay.
Then the last part of the amendment is the increasing the maximum residential occupancy. So the current standard is occupancy of a residential dwelling unit is by a family or no more than 3 individuals. The proposal is to go to a family plus 1 or no more than 4 unrelated individuals. And this is rooted into the Utah Municipal Code, which basically allows a city, statewide occupancy is 4, but allows a city with a university to go down to 3. We've had this on the books since about 1976.
And every other university town in Utah is at 3, is that correct?
Correct.
76. Did you say 76?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
That's where it shows up in zoning ordinance. And we also propose to change the definition of family to simplify it. Just take out some of the, I guess, the duplicitous mumbo jumbo and try to just streamline it so that it means a family, person related by blood, adoption, marriage, legal guardianship, or similar legal relationship, or 2 unrelated persons and their children living and cooking together, single housekeeping together. And with that, any questions? I did send you all the comments I got. It's actually kind of in 3 different packets.
Yeah.
You should have gotten one this afternoon.
So question, from the current denser developments that are going on, how many got a density bonus?
How many current projects?
Yeah.
0, none.
Did any of them ask about, no?
Nope.
Thanks.
Do you by any chance have a slide of our zoning overlay, by any chance, of like where TC1, TC2, that you can easily pull up or not? I can pull it up
I don't have
here.
a slide of it. I can grab it off.
He has it in his back pocket all the time.
Well, you never know.
Come to grab one. I can get it off our website. I think.
I have it here, just thought, throw it up for the public.
It's something from last week.
Because since those micro units, because that was one concern that came through in some emails, was just the parking issue. But I think it was interpreted that this might be in neighborhoods where parking would become more of a problem, so I think it's helpful to see where the
25 seconds, Mike.
the
Nice
mixed
and
use.
easy.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. See how easy it is to navigate the website.
It's super easy. Unless you really want something.
Just got to do it.
So here's the current zoning map. In fact, this has just been updated. This purple or lightish, pinkish, purplish color, color challenged is TC1. This darker purple on the edges is TC2. The red is commercial. And then these colors right here are mixed use. Yellow is generally in R6. The lighter yellow is NR4, and then these brown are a mixed residential. Generally, they're going to be, looks like MR12 is typically what we see. And this area right on campus is campus residential.
So in reality, the micro unit, because we're excluding TC1, eliminates most of the hotels in our community, because we've got the Boz in a TC1 zone, the one next to the liquor stores in it is TC1.
Right.
Okay.
I think the concern about that is we're pumping a lot of energy into downtown, and you don't necessarily want to incentivize certain types of development when you're trying to do other things. So
Boosting tourism and taking away hotel space, that isn't compatible.
well, yeah.
It's not compatible.
Right.
Yeah.
So when Planning Commission discussed this, I listened to at least a portion of the audio. They were concerned about, especially with the increase from 3 to 4,
Occupancy.
one of the concerns that they expressed was our ability to enforce. Yes. And I wonder whether we need to consider that change in light of a broader enforcement issue. Because it seems that we don't do the world's best job of enforcement now, and I think there's a fear that it'll just get worse. And I don't know you have anything to say about that, but
But if you've looked at the statistics that come in that quarterly neighborhood development, well, it's the monthly neighborhood redevelopment report, and then is it quarterly you do the enforcement statistics, or a couple of times a year?
Just,
I mean, the numbers have increased, the percentage, I mean, you can read how many cases are open, how many are generated by staff, not just complaints. So I think we really are, again, it's not a perfect science, it is a challenging thing, but we have made more of an effort to do that. Our inspectors are out on a regular basis. We follow up on any citizen complaints we get. So again, if you'll look at the statistics in that report, and if anyone in the audience, would like that, I mean, I think everyone on our neighborhood council list does get that periodic email. We can send you the statistics.
it's on the website. So when you look at how we report those, we've had 13 over occupancy violations this year, and the challenge with occupancy is we're limited by what we can actually do as a government, right? We can't just go barging your door because we think you got more than 3 people living there. So it's not as simple as, oh, they're not paying attention. We are paying attention, but there's got to be some reasonable proof that we can actually base what we want to do on. So the burden's on us to prove that you're violating the law, not the other way around. We don't have to have you prove that you're not violating the law. So it's a tricky science. We don't have the time to do a stakeout on a house. We rely on folks to give us complaints, tell us how many cars there, we run license plates, and we kind of follow it through. But our goal is to get compliance. And in some cases, people will rent out to 3 people, not knowingly that one of their tenants is sublease so that they share the room with the person. I mean, that happens more than you think it does, and it's just the way it is. So we do enforce what we're aware of. But if we're not aware of it, then obviously it goes unenforced.
And the process for that also takes much longer.
Right.
I mean, you drive up, you see weeds, you drop a courtesy. I mean, it's very easy to see if weeds or junk or unoperative cars, if those things have been taken care of. It's just, again, much harder. You have to, so.
Yeah, they're entitled to due process. And so back to your original question about how we would enforce it the same way we do now. So whether you have 3 living there, 5 living there, 10 living there, it's going to be the same process we would have to go through in order to enforce if they're violating rules. I will say if you change the occupancy level from 3 to 4, I would think our enforcement would probably drop off, because then some of those homes that probably do house multiple kids, 4, would be okay, be licensed and be okay. So.
But again, it would be quite a change from what we've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's been on the books since '76, so that is, what, 50 years ago?
Almost.
47 years, so.
So when we look at the state requirement for our moderate income housing plan, this is one piece. If a portion of this is adopted, but not all of it, are there issues with whether or not we're continuing to work towards state compliance on our moderate? I mean, these are just things that we could do that community development does before us.
We could do nothing and we'd still be compliant.
Yeah, you as the representative of Logan City have the fundamental right to say, we've evaluated this. We don't think this is a benefit to the city, and this is why. Okay. We don't think that this is going to prove to flesh out and create more moderate housing. So yeah, that's totally in your purview, and so when we report this annually, what we would do is go through what we've done procedurally to get to this point, this decision, and it's clearly, if you find that, no, this is a bad idea, that's the way we go.
Thanks. I think some people have said city council wants to do that. It came from city council. I just wanted to clarify that these suggestions were not generated amongst city council members. They are generated by community development in response to the state requirement that we evaluate these types of things for our moderate.
Yeah, so the state requirement is we look at any kind of regulatory changes we can make that would encourage moderate income housing. Again, it's broken up into this short-term, short-range approach versus long-term. For long-term, we're going to go through a planning process for a plan. We'll probably kick out some regulations after that. So we'll actually have that longer-term discussion about, where we want to see our community growing. Immediate term, things like parking. We need to have a discussion about parking. Everybody, we don't have enough parking, but parking is the biggest use of property and land in the city. So we need to have a discussion about that, because you get away with parking or reduce parking requirements, you free up more land. But that's a hard discussion, right? Yeah. We shouldn't shy away from that. And these are the shorter term things. So if you change occupancy, you automatically free up units. You just free up living space, but there are issues that go with it. And that's what you kind of have to look at. What are the pros and cons of doing something like that?
Thanks.
I can't remember if we discussed much of this, but the Planning Commission, they recommended approval of this. How did that discussion go? How did the vote go for recommending approval?
Yeah, the minutes in your packet, I think it was either 6-1, or I think we had a full group that night.
6-1.
They all understand the challenges of housing. They understand that we have a housing shortage. They also understand the fact that when you look at the range of incomes in the city, that the majority of folks can't afford what housing is available. So they look at it as a way, when you look at density bonuses as a way to throw a bone to a developer that maybe you'll get something out of it. The micro-housing, maybe that's an option, but also the occupancy, it's a discussion to have, and they didn't feel like it was significantly detrimental to neighborhoods. And they had some comments had folks that testified, said, no, it's a bad idea, but they still felt that it was, good to move it on to you guys to look at.
But did they also discuss that, by allowing 4 people, that may actually encourage more developers to buy units, that they're probably not going to, lower the price if they can have 4 people in a unit. It'll probably be, the same amount of rent and they just make more money. So there could be more incentive for a developer to buy a property and if they can put 4 people.
And I also believe there was some question at some point in time when I was listening, again, regarding, is there a way that we could increase from 3 to 4 in like a 4-plex or larger, and not in houses, in neighborhoods. But I don't know whether that's even within the realm of possibility. I felt like from their conversation, and I'm interpreting, was that they didn't love it, but they couldn't, they wanted to spend more time talking about alternatives, but they were they said, well, we'll just send it on to the city council, and if they want to talk about alternatives, they can send it back or whatever.
Yeah, we do a different occupancy for campus residential, but you could legally justify that because it's really geared towards students. So in that zone, you see projects that are geared up towards single room rental rates or double room, 2 people per room. So it's easier in that case. I think the easiest approach is to say either we love it or we hate it, and if it's good to put it in this zone or put it in this location, it's okay in this location. So really, I think that's, try to keep it as fundamental as you can. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? That's okay if you all find that it just doesn't make good sense for the city, because the state law says you can go down to 3 as a university town because there are implications for doing it. You could target it to the higher density zones, but I think the easiest approach is yay or nay, right across the board for occupancy.
So I believe we talked about this last time, so you can't carve out one section of residential that it applies to and one that it does not, like was done with the ADU. It would make,
It would make our job to enforce it that much more problematic, but I think you're on a slippery slope of discrimination if you do that.
Yeah.
Well, the federal standard for occupancy is generally, it's 2 people per bedroom.
Plus 1, right?
Well, just the federal standard is generally the generalized occupant load is 2 per bedroom. They take families all out of it. You can't discriminate against family, whether you have 2 kids or 25 kids or, whatever. But they leave it up to a local municipality to make that decision based on other factors. And other factors could be, you could look at, size of bedrooms, the size of structure, size of property, parking, things like that. But you have to be really careful about when you start putting in these little caveats about, I'll give you this because you have that, it leads to these other weird nuances about, I like Jeannie, I'll give her 4, but I don't like Ernesto because of Latino, we're going to say 3 there. So it's just, you got to agree to the standard, 3, 4, whatever the right number is, and just go with that. And if it's 3, that's fine. If it's 4, that's fine. But try to avoid trying to target specific areas or specific groups or specific zones or whatever.
But you did say it could be in high-density zones.
But you could go down that avenue. I just don't think that's a good idea. I think it should be, I think you should look at it from the perspective citywide. Is it appropriate in a single-family dwelling as it is in a duplex or in a 4-plex or a 24-plex?
So I'm thinking about like the Foothill lofts that are off on 12, where they've got, 2 and 3 bedroom units. So the 3 unrelated applies there. So you're saying to
No, I
have.
think it's campus residential up there, isn't it?
No.
No, that's not.
Okay.
It's not CR.
residential.
Okay.
It's just regular. So the 3 unrelated applies to that now.
Correct.
And you're saying that having mixed use, or I'm sorry, multifamily, to change it just for that, so that a 3-bedroom apartment there could have 6 people, that would be, you would recommend against that?
I would recommend, if you're going to treat that apartment any different than you would the 6-bedroom house 2 blocks from USU differently because of their location, and I think we're going to have problems with that. I think it would be easier just to say, if if you can put 6 people in this apartment complex at Foothill Lofts, then you should be able to put 6 people in this house down here. Because in theory, this house is sized for more people. I mean, it's got 6 bedrooms, it's got parking for 3 cars or whatever, then you should say that that's appropriate for an uptick in occupancy. Again, it's looking for selfishly, as having to administer folks who do enforcement, it'd be easier just to say one standard citywide as opposed, and just leave the campus residential out of it.
As a reluctant landlord, I would rent to 4 for the same price as what you can get from 3, but I don't think everybody's going to do that. So you can make an extra $600 if you're charging $600 a person. You get $2,400 instead of $1,800. Why would you not?
That's a concern.
But I think you look at it from the simple perspective of economics. If it's supply and demand, if you have that many more units on the market that can house that many more kids, the demand is always constant. It doesn't go up because you have these 4-bedroom or 4 units that can house 4 people. So the theory is, if you open up that much more supply, then in theory that competition should lower the overall price.
But right now, if you have a 1-bedroom apartment, you can have 3 people in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or if you're a family, you can have more than 3.
From the parking complaints, how often do we have non-student related complaints with parking for just a family?
I couldn't tell you the breakdown between whether they're a student or they're a family, but it's probably a good share of both. I mean, it's, I know folks that, well, Jeff Gilbert, right? Works for the county, CMPO. He had a house on 2nd North, and as his kids came of age where they were driving, he had a single-lane driveway back to a single-car garage. And as all the kids got a car and were driving, it's like, I just can't make it work because I live on 2nd North. It's hard to park out there, so they moved to North Logan. So I think it's a reality of your circumstances and where you live. So I don't know the distinction between students and non-students.
He didn't ever get cited, though.
No.
Any other comments before we open it up?
We peppered Mike enough.
I think so. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment on this specific item, please come up to the mic, state your name and place of residence. And just by a show of hands, how many of you are looking to comment on this specific item?
We should decide if we're doing 2 minutes or 3.
Yeah.
Okay. For the sake of time, I hope you will agree that 2 minutes is probably a good amount of time rather than the 3 minutes that many times we do. So 2 minutes will be the limit for your comment.
Talk extra fast.
Yeah, and if you already sent us an email, we've read it. You don't have to get up and speak again. Like if we might not have responded to all of them because there's a lot. I tried to respond to everybody, but I read everybody's letter. So
We did get numerous emails, and I believe everybody read them. Some pro everything, some pro some of the things. So please, Dr. Yost.
Dr. Gail B. Yost. I have a PhD in family life. And I'm wondering, my husband and I had been wondering when we heard micro-housing, if it were including some of the things that we've seen on newscasts, where there are small little bungalows for people who are homeless, for people, veterans who are having problems, and that's not what this is at all. Is it possible that later on that could expand to tiny houses? And why are tiny houses not allowed in neighborhood residential? Because in some cases, it might actually make the people who might be using them more inclined to be social. And when they have a house of their own, they're more likely to be merging into the normal social life. And that's one of the things that they've learned about micro-housing with tiny houses, that those people who get those tiny houses feel more independent, they have less mental health problems, and they have to follow certain rules like no drugs, but that it really has helped them to learn to socialize again in what we consider a common way that we all socialize together. And that's my question and my questions. Will that be ever a place that we could go with the tiny houses like other states and other cities have done across the country?
Thank you.
Okay, I am here today in opposition of increasing occupancy in the
Just
Adams
state your
Park.
name and your...
Oh, I will. In the Adams Park neighborhood from 3 to 4 residents. My name is Christine Lord. I am president of Maple Grove Homeowners Association. We are very small, consisting of 7 units in a cul-de-sac south of 7th North and west of 6th East. All of our homes are identical. 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2-car garage, etc., with the same floor plan. We are registered as a PUD, which means we are private and we get no services from Logan City, such as parking enforcement or snow removal. I have lived in Maple Grove for nearly 27 years, and most of that time, there were only 2 of us who owned and lived there. The rest were owned by absentee landlords. Consequently, when we experienced overoccupancy, parking was a nightmare. Some landlords would rent to 4 or 5 single college students. Theoretically, they could park 2 cars in their garage and 2 on the driveway, but students inevitably did not want to figure out the logistics of dealing with their roommates. So they would just park wherever they wanted. Currently, the only unit that has single college students has limited their occupancy to 3, and one of them uses a bike as transportation. So parking is not a problem at this time. Because of past negative experiences, I am opposed to increasing occupancy in the Adams Park neighborhood from 3 to 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to come and speak to the city council, and thank you for all that you do. Frank Stewart, I live in the Adams neighborhood. My wife and I have done so for over 60 years, and we're responsible for 3 of these single-family homes of the less than 40% that still remain. My daughter and her husband live in my in-laws' home, raising 3 grandsons that I'm very proud of, and feel very strongly that we need to protect the opportunities that our single families have. Because if we continue to do what we're doing, we're going to lose more and more of them. It is painful to hear my grandchildren talk about not having enough friends to play with after school. And it's because we have gone from the enforcement issues of having just 3 and the difficulty of taking care of that. It is not so much about parking as much as it is about blight, because these have become a blight in our single-family neighborhoods. If we could guarantee that parking was all in their garages and in the driveway, if we can guarantee that there was yard work taken care of, then we'd have a different situation. But we can clearly drive around the city and identify every one of those absentee owner homes. I've spoken to students at those homes and asked them why their yard looks like it does. And they've said, hey, we don't even have access to a lawnmower. We don't have access to snow shovels. So we're not doing justice if we try to go from 3 to 4. I just want to reference Bert Lamborn's and Sue Sorensen's letters to you because I think they are right on. And the Vatican knows that opportunity. I also wanted to just mention, I know Mike, with all due respect, has mentioned a couple of times in this threats, if you want to call it that the legislature would take away transportation funding. Superintendent Schofield and I have met with 2 of the legislators, and they have said that is not going to happen. That is not the intent. The intent is that this is a statewide program.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. My last comment, if I could please, because this is important.
The time is up, thank you.
Oh, shoot. Technical College is building tiny homes for Salt Lake City as we speak, and they're paying for the supplies and to come pick up the tiny home. That's a wonderful opportunity to buy that property north of the middle school and be ahead of the curve and be creative.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Edwards, Professor Emeritus, and I've been a Hillcrest resident for about 2.5 decades or more. 2 of the kids went through the house there, and they're all fledged now for some of the housing reasons that are talked about here. I want to start out by saying I'm opposed to the increase from 3 to 4 in what are the typical single-family dwellings up in there for some of the reasons that are quite patently obvious to everybody, including more cars. I mean no offense, but I kind of chuckle when I see things like 0.7 cars per 2 people. The reality is when it's students, you're going to have 1 car per student and can't even include the weekend visitors that come over and stay the night.
Just the weekend?
None of my business. But I do wish the council would consider possibly disaggregating that last clause, because I personally have no objection to a non-related individual living in a house in a family. For example, somebody who drives kids to soccer, acts as a nanny or something like that. I do wish the council would consider possibly doing that, but I do wish to express opposition to ramping it up to 4 unrelated individuals in this house. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrea Sinfield, and I'd like to thank you all for what you do for the city. I appreciate all the work and effort you have. I live in Adams neighborhood, and I lived there for 15 years. I'm invested there. I love it. But this proposed amendment makes me think about, well, I'd like to compare it to an analogy. My husband hates analogies, but I love them. So imagine you go to a sit-down restaurant, and you want to enjoy it and sit there for a while. And then people come in, they have their seats, they're eating, and then more people are like, oh, we want our spot to sit there. We're gonna make more spaces at this table that's only meant for a couple. We're gonna make more spaces. Oh, you can sit on that person's lap too. Pretty soon, your enjoyment of your dinner becomes this crazy, chaotic thing, and I don't know, I feel like our neighborhood's kind of becoming the fast food of restaurants, where it's you come in, the students come in, they go, and they leave. And this would increase that. We want if you want families to stay, then you want to create an environment, an ambiance, as you will, to my analogy of we want you to stay and sit a while instead of come in, get out, and go. And by increasing it by 1, I feel like it just encourages that, because we all know that if you increase it by 1, it's going to be a student that's coming there. So I want everybody to eat, and my analogy, I want everyone to eat. I want you to have a house. But if you can't afford to have a house, then there's a couple things you can do. You can increase your income, get more education. You can go somewhere where it's cheaper housing. Or there's other things you can do. But if we're doing this to increase for the moderate income, I feel like it's going to change the flow of, especially my neighborhood in Adams. So I appreciate you declining that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Under 2 minutes.
My name is Stephanie Carter, and I am also in the Adams neighborhood area. And we, being a young family, it's very hard to raise a family there with students surrounding you. I also run a business out of my home, and there are times that I cannot even have my clients park in front of my house due to students, having one house across the street from us, and they have 10 cars. And when I can't even have people over to my own home and park at my own house, it's frustrating. And we have seen a huge problem in that. And it also is hard because, you want families close to you. And I think, 50 years ago when, you first had this, I think families were really established in Logan. And as people died or, grew up, young families came in and bought these houses. But then when other people can't afford them, you get somebody that comes in, buys it, and gets students in there. And because of all the students surrounding and not as much families, it's pushing us families wanting to go elsewhere and not be in Logan City anymore due to not having families around us and kind of feeling swarmed by students and over occupancy as well as parking. So,
thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cole Checketts. I live in the Woodruff neighborhood of Logan. Thank you, City Council, for all you do. Being on a school board as well, it's a lot of work and a lot of unappreciated time sometimes, so thank you for what you do. I'd like to, one of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life. In that movie, there's a wonderful character, George Bailey. George Bailey is fighting for the little guy in that movie. He wants to make sure everyone has an affordable house. He wants a place to have a roof over your head where you could celebrate with your family. And part of that, his bartender friend, Martini, he got him a house and had a big ribbon cutting ceremony and how wonderful that was. And he celebrated sharing that amongst his neighbors. And then there was Potter, who was constantly fighting against, who was trying to buy up everything and get them to all pay the high interest rates and to make them subject to Potter. The city council and the city of Logan's been kind of tipping the hat towards Potter. I feel in my neighborhood in the Woodruff area feels like, and please consider the George Baileys of the world and fight for them, and really consider looking into that. Recently, we had a triplex sell next to my home, and all the renters moved out of that triplex because it was the rent from $900 a month to $1,350 a month. Recently, a bunch of individuals moved in from Venezuela, and a 2-bedroom apartment. Now we have 6 people living there, and 1 female and 5 males. And they're all moving there and living in this apartment. They said it's because they didn't have to do background checks. And I do worry about that because it's right next to Woodruff Elementary, and it'd be nice to have background checks on, renters and that, to know who is living in these places close to an elementary. So thank you, and appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
My name is Bonnie Hoth. I also live in the Adams neighborhood. Recently, I was walking down the street and picked up this flyer. It says, rare investment opportunity. Updated 4-bedroom, 2-bath home with 2 laundry hookups and a mother-in-law apartment. As I went to the MLS, this home, which is very minimal, I've been in it upstairs and downstairs, not recently, but I have been in the original structure, is listed at $425,000. Each of the 2 homes behind it, which are down the same street, if you will, I would anticipate are similar pricing because they're similar structure. So I would like to, if this is considered, I would like the parking space be 1 car per person per bed, not per unit, per person. A number of years ago, a study was done on 23 blocks in the immediate Adams School neighborhood. It was verified by a USU statistician, and for plus or minus 6% accuracy, what people wanted was access to parks. They wanted access to open space, particularly if they're living in a tiny home, if you will. So I just did a rough estimate of this room. I would say it's maybe pretty close to the specified 3,000, 3 to 4,000 feet. So put a tiny home in this room. Picture that. The other question that I have is why are we only looking at Logan for solutions for this? I think we can expand to the county. And people who have young families often want to go to the county because there's more open space, more park areas, more children in the neighborhood. And the other question that I have is, you say it's hard to prove over occupancy. What are the proof needed guidelines, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Wells. I live in the Adams neighborhood. I am opposed to this, especially the increased residential occupancy. I have neighbors on both sides that rent out their basement apartment, and I have had to police that and report it to the city. And the city has done a great job at responding to each one of those, so I thank the city for that. But it's frustrating to me as a homeowner that I have to be the one to police that. If we increase to 4, that makes it harder for me to police because there's more cars to count. There's more, is that a friend? Is that somebody staying for a long weekend? Or are they living there? It usually takes me a month or 2 before I know these cars are consistently here and they should be living there. So I'm opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You shouldn't have to police it, Steve. Yeah.
That's the reality.
That's the truth, yeah. Well, I hear you.
I'm still Marilyn Griffin. I still live at 630 North 2nd East, right in the middle of everything. I'm in Adams neighborhood, and I'm so grateful there's so many Adams people here today. But I can't just sit here and listen when you all are telling me that things are getting better in regards to overoccupancy. It is not. That the reality is, it is not. And people get tired of calling in because nothing happens. There are the landlords who do things on the QT. And they've got good ways of keeping it quiet. Now, we all live pretty close together. We know who's coming and going. And when you, and the other thing that just really has had my core in the last few days, and I think I sent a letter in regards to this, when in the statement that was sent out via email, that the council said there may be significant issues with this approach that the council is working on to ensure the end result is not a degradation of existing neighborhoods. And this is something that we've talked about for years, and that is improving neighborhoods. And when any decision is made, that decision needs to be made for not today and not tomorrow, but for the long term. The home I'm living in right now is the home I was raised in. You can tell that was a long time ago. We've lived there for a long, long time. It was a dirt road when my parents built their home. And we have had to live with decisions that were made years ago, and we're still having to live with them. And so when we continue to make band-aid issues, and for the now, this is what's now, think about what's going to happen in 10 years from now, because we're still going to be living with those. So be very, very careful when you make that kind of a decision. And hopefully the occupancy thing, well, the 3 to 4 is, it'll then be 8 to 10.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rayanne Hansen, and I'm the Adams Neighborhood Chair. And isn't it an awesome place? You've heard from some of the residents tonight. And I've written a letter. I just want to say thank you for the responses that you gave. So real quickly, I want to kind of dovetail on what Marilyn was talking about, it seems to me that most of our problems that we're addressing today are a result of some of the short-term decisions that were made in the past years. And so, do we want to continue to make these short-term solutions, or do we really want to think about what is going to be best for future generations? So I just want to kind of put that in your mind, as I'm sure it is for many of you anyway. I know it is. So thank you for the enforcement. I think over the years it has been stepped up and enhanced, and continue to do so for our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name's Andrew Semineni. I live in the Adams neighborhood. I'm a teacher at Logan High School. Been so for about 26 years, 27 years. I've seen a lot of change over time. I teach environmental science. One of the topics that we focus on is inner city decay. In my tenure here in Logan, we're seeing it, we're experiencing it. I see a number of families leaving our district because can't find a home, or the grass is greener in the county. A lot of the homes, if we're at 40% ownership, 60% rental, I think there's something wrong with that. We should be turning over these homes into family homes. Our policies are incentivizing rentals. We have companies come in and buy up these homes, and increasing the occupancy will incentivize more rentals, and it will not, I do not believe it's going to alleviate the rental, the price. It's just going to get more expensive, or it's just going to make our neighborhood worse. So would really appreciate that you consider not raising the occupancy rate and focus on policies that will bring families back into Logan to occupy these homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Josh Smith. I live in the Adams neighborhood. Been living there since 2019 and really enjoy it. My wife told me not to do this because she said, you really don't want to be the guy who shows up at the city council meeting and complains and whines. So I first want to say, of course, that thank you for all of the work. I know that all the emails you got were probably not as polite as the one I tried to send and then asked my wife, say this polite enough, is this kind? So I want to say thank you. This is not an easy sort of thing. It's not an easy kind of project. It's not an easy problem to solve because there's always a reason not to do some of these reforms. I love Adams. It will be better when there are 4 people allowed to live in homes. In reality, it's a small potatoes change that won't even be noticed because all sorts of cities with universities across the country, Bozeman, Montana is a great example, allow more than 3 unrelated people to live together. The kinds of problems that I think everyone here shares do not revolve around any of the changes here. They revolve around a fundamental problem that we have in Utah, which is the housing shortage. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, there have been a couple articles in different news outlets. Utah Magazine had a report about 61,000 missing units. These are 61,000 people who cannot live in Utah because there are not homes for them. I wish it was that bad because KSL just ran a new article saying that it's actually 3 times worse than that. There are 178,000 missing homes in Utah, and that's the fundamental problem. These will be good reforms. I was excited to listen to Mike talk about the kinds of changes and these sorts of issues. I can tell you're in good hands here. But I think that there's so much that Logan has to offer families. There's so much Logan here. If everyone here is any indication, people love this place. And I'm excited to work and help in any way I can in keeping it this way. I'm firmly in support of all of these changes. They are ultimately small potatoes, but they are small potatoes in a long journey toward building something better. So thank you all. I'm happy to talk more anytime. You all have my emails since I've sent you a few now. But anyways, thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you.
I'm Sharon Samadeni, and I'm in Adams. I don't want to go to the foreign related. I feel, as everybody else, you don't see one college student here. You all see people who want families back in our neighborhoods. And so I don't understand why we have to even consider this. I also understand because our landlords aren't involved either. We don't see them there. We had an incident in our neighborhood a couple of years ago where the landlord lived in California, and we were having incidences in their home. Thankfully, we had a phone number and we called. And we actually had the SWAT team come in and had to take care of it. So I'm just saying that if we really want good people back in Logan to be on these committees and to be on these things, that's what we need, because we're not seeing a college student sitting on Logan City Council or on the Planning Commission, because we need families back. We need good people to be able to take your positions or to take other positions that will help grow and help Logan be better. So I am totally against having this go up to 4 unrelated. So thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, Joe, me too. Sue Sorensen, I will not take very long marks, and she told me I couldn't stand up again.
I did get your email.
Thank you. My only thing that I want to bring up again too is the confusion even tonight with the micro units on, can they go in apartments? Do they go in old hotels? Do they go wherever? I think there's not enough clear for you to vote on that and say yes on that tonight. I think it's still too fuzzy for you. Totally against the 3 to 4, because I'm with everybody else. When you turn into rentals, we want more families in our city. We don't want more backyards paved in cement. So, and thank you. That's it.
That was quick.
Thank you.
Thank you for your brevity.
Yes, Sue Spatzman, I am. My name's Joe Needham. I live here in the historic downtown area. I have flag lot apartments behind me. I know what it's like to live in the inner city. And but I was pretty shocked when this passed through the Planning Commission, because I have to think the goal of the city, the goal of Logan City Council is to have a place where families want to live and not to flee from. I mentioned the next day to one of my brothers, my only brother that owns any commercial, rental units in Logan, and he said, you know, I've always done the math on that if I rent a 3, I can't just buy it, you know, for what the banks would require and make a profit. But if it was 4, that always made the difference. And so I think if we want to see more homes slip away to rentals, then this would be a sure way to do it. We have over 1,500 apartments that have been that have recently been built or plan to be built or being built right now. I don't think we need to run this experiment on our residential neighborhoods. I think we should be working to take them back. And also in Planning Commission, it was interesting that no other city in the state has moved to do this. And I don't think we need to be the experimental one to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a quick comment about the micro living units. I spoke with a builder, and he kind of equated it to mobile home park. So like the micro housing units are the modern mobile home parks, maybe. Help think about that differently.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So I've never been to a council meeting, or honestly, I don't even know what this is called.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I honestly just came because my friend Mike invited me just to come to see what it is.
State your name.
Oh, sorry. My name's Glenn Halterman. I don't live in the Adams neighborhood. I don't really have anything to do with this. I don't know why I'm talking. But when you guys were talking, describing everything, I thought, oh, only 3 to 4 sounds like a good thing. But then as I heard the different people talking, I thought, it actually makes sense that it's not, for the sake of the people who really want to be in Logan. And families are very important to communities. That's the difference, in my opinion, between a good community and a community that's going to probably have a lot more crime and things like that. And so for the sake of the people that came because they really cared about this, I hope that you guys will vote against the 3 going to 4 specifically. Just because after hearing the different things that these individuals took time out of their life because it really meant something to them, I feel like that was really powerful. So I hope that you guys will take that in consideration as you guys consider specifically the 3 to 4. So thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we are good to go. Bringing this back to the council. Thank you, everyone, for your comments, and thank you for everyone that took the time to email us. And as we said earlier, we did go through all those emails. I also want to recognize that we did get, I'd say, a handful of people that were in favor of, just like, what was your name?
Josh.
Josh, of everything in the proposed changes. But I think it's important to listen to everyone that has comments that maybe is just against one portion of this that we need to really think through. So with that said,
Discussion.
how do you guys want to proceed?
I would personally like to discuss each one separately and decide how we feel about each piece separately. I agree wholeheartedly with individuals in the neighborhoods who are talking about the fact that we need to find a way to not just make people be pegs we stick under a roof, but actually find a way to create value for them. All of these ordinances are all rentals. And I know that there is a desire on the part of people at all income levels to find a way to create value and lasting value in their residence so they can build on that over time. It's been historically in the United States, it is the way people build wealth. And we change things. I think the state legislature recognized the fact that university communities are sort of a different animal. We are de facto student housing in many respects. Mike talked about the fact that the university houses fewer than 50%, they have housing for fewer than 50% of the students.
3,500.
3,500 out of 18,000. So it's significantly less than 50%.
Our burden is 15,000.
So we become the de facto place for those people to live so they can go to school and so they can go on with their lives. Probably, a good portion of them will come back, but some of them will leave and go elsewhere, and we have given them a good education. They have earned a good education. I shouldn't say we gave it to them. But at the same time, they impact our community in a way that's different, in my opinion, than impacts are felt in a community without a university as its center. But anyway, I would like to divide it up into different pieces to talk about it differently, and I may even want to subdivide it even more because I don't object to the family portion, but I do not believe that we should change from 3 to 4, and I have felt that way for a long time.
Do you have a suggestion as to which one you'd like to talk about first?
I like that idea.
Let's talk about the 3 to 4 and the family first. I'm fine with that.
So when I was reviewing the letters from people and just hearing comments today, it's reinforced that I keep hearing like 3 separate concerns. One is why we're looking at this is that need for additional housing for predicted growth and for the internal growth that we're experiencing. So that I think we need to be mindful that that's why we're talking about this. Right. Is that's that first concern. The second is maintaining community stability and home ownership. And then the third is enforcement. And so I'm struggling with how you can find a solution for all 3 of those at the same time. But I don't know what compromise you could have, but I would tend to agree that number 2, moving from 3 to 4, is not compatible with that idea of maintaining home ownership and community stability. It just feels like moving it from 3 to 4 would not achieve that and might make more issues for enforcement. But it does fit that additional housing for growth. So I would be inclined to say move that out. But I think that idea of a family is family plus one. In some ways, that's almost like the internal ADU. It's just reflective of that. I mean, I was reminded when we had a college student living with us for a brief period of time before she was engaged, back 18 years ago, before I was on council and I knew all the rules. But in theory, for the 3 months she was with us, we were out of compliance because there were more than 3 unrelated people living in our house. So that to me makes sense, to do the family plus one. So those are my thoughts on the 3-4.
So just to review, I'm hearing that we'd like to subdivide that third item that includes both the family plus one and the 3 unrelated to 4 unrelated. Are we all in agreement? Do you want to do that, or do you want to keep it as one item?
Well, what I would think we could do is we could, if we can talk about all 3 of them, what I was thinking is depending on what we decide, is we could just make an amendment to 1762B to leave that at 3. And in the table, 1708040 also keep, I mean, I think that references back to just 1762. We wouldn't have to change the chart because that references the ordinance, but I think we could make an amendment to the proposed ordinance to just change that, presuming that the other 2 items were something we all agreed on. But until we talk about those other 2, I'm not ready to make an amendment.
Are we still talking about the individual items? I love our students and I love our student population. And sometimes we forget that not everyone wants a house and not everyone can afford a house. Bonnie made the point that that house that is supposedly a starter home for someone at $425,000, even if you put $85,000 down on it, your payment's still over $3,000 a month. Is that affordable for anyone right now? It's not. It's not. So all you're going to get is investors. And if an investor has to put $85,000 down, which they do, because if they're going to buy as a property, they can't get a cheaper down payment than that, then they have to rent it for at least $3,000 a month because they're not making any money on it. And so 4 people allows you to get closer to $3,000 than 3 people, because then they pay $1,000 a month for 1 room. I don't think anybody's going to do that. So it makes it very difficult. It does make these more investment properties instead of people who want to live there. The only way we can take care of all of our population, not just our families, because the students are part of our population, they're an important part of our population as well too. We need to increase our student housing, and it's unfortunate that the university has not kept up with enrollment and how many students that they can house, and so it's become a burden for Logan to take care of. And many parents have decided this is a great way to house their children because they can buy a property, child can live there, rent it out, they can make up some of their cost of their investment, sometimes maybe even make a little extra money, and it's turned into a really great opportunity for people. And unfortunately, it's not the ordinances that Logan has put in place that has caused this. It's mortgage crisis, lack of housing. There are a lot of different reasons, and it's not just Utah, it's the entire country that's dealing with this. So the only way to fix that is to create more units. And I asked Mike the other day how many units we have coming online in the next couple of years that are on the books. He told me 2,800.
About 2,800.
About 2,800. So we are doing our part to try and take care of this housing crisis. If we have 2,800 more units, that's going to take a bite out of it. It's not going to fix it, but it's going to take a bite out of it. That's really going to help. If we can create some student housing that is affordable and works for our students, where they can work, live, entertain themselves, socialize, and catch the bus to go to school, it's a much more attractive place for them to be than in a house with 10 guys or 6 girls. And as a student, I remember going to one of those houses that was in the Adams neighborhood because I had a bunch of friends that lived there. And it wasn't just 10 guys that lived there, it was 10 guys and 8 girls that lived there. All right. 3 quickly turns into 6. And that's kind of the way human nature works. So to fix this, it's not going to be a fast fix, it's not going to be an easy fix, but we've got to find places for our students to live because they are an important part of our community as well. We have students here that came to school, that graduated, and want to buy houses. They want to have families. They want to live here. They're an important part of our community. We can't just disregard them. We have to find a place to house them that works. And I don't like that in single-family homes. Well, single-family homes should be for starter homes for our people that want to have a family and want to buy a house. As a student, I couldn't afford a house. As a newlywed, I couldn't afford a house. As a newlywed with 1 child, I could barely afford a house. You know, that was at 28. Yeah, it's hard to afford a house right now. As much as we don't want rentals, we need rentals because that's how you afford to live as a student, as a newlywed with starting a family. That's how it works. We've all been there, right? We've all been in that situation. That's where you have to start. Then hopefully the houses will be more available because we pulled the students out of those houses because they're living somewhere more beneficial for them. So I would be very opposed to increasing from 3 to 4 because I think that's going to cause more problems in the long run for what we're doing. But we need to find ways to house those people. We need to explore more ADUs, and we need to find ways to create more student housing. So I would vote no on that portion as well. But when it comes to the others, I like the idea of the density bonuses. I'm okay with the 5% or with the 10%. With the 20, I like the other option that you gave us, Mike. I thought that was good too. So I like both of those. So I'd vote for either of those. Micro units, I'm mixed on. I'm not sure about those. I'm kind of like Sue. I'd like to know a little bit more about it. But I really think a better option is for us to explore more options for ADUs. I think that's a better option for us.
I think on the micro units, it's just given the work that I've been doing with the local homeless council and with the warming center and recognizing the extreme shortage we have for very low income housing, that the way that those are structured, I mean, I know I really believe that's a really big missing piece of our housing here. I appreciate that there's some questions about it, but they are done in other communities, and I think that that's something that we have an obligation to the people in our community that are struggling financially to create some more truly low-income housing. And I think that's really the only way you're going to do it is if you allow somebody to build something where their density can
It's not like we're going to wave a magic wand, they're going to magically appear tomorrow.
Correct.
So we're going to see how that works, and if it doesn't work, we can
Right, and it's
change it.
in the multifamily. It's not going to be in neighborhoods. It's the zones that it's related to are already areas where there's high density.
I think the restrictions that have been presented to us would keep it limited to certain areas, but I would like to see somebody build one to see how it works.
Yeah, so I wonder whether we, just by changing the ordinance to allow it, is enough for us. I mean, should we,
gotta try it.
People, we could put it on the books and nobody would ever do it.
It would have allowed Bill 364 to be converted more rapidly.
Bottom floor, yeah.
Well, no, it wouldn't, because it's in TC1.
No, we changed the zone to allow it to have housing on both floors. It was originally commercial. That zone. We did a zone change for that.
Yeah.
I know we did, but
it was
We did
originally
it to
commercial.
facilitate that project. They couldn't do it in the commercial zone because in commercial, the entire ground floor has to be residential, or a commercial, I'm sorry. And in TC1, you can have residential on both floors.
And you're right, it doesn't guarantee that somebody would do it, but it does open the door that somebody could.
So for the sake of keeping us focused, let's talk about one piece.
That's Craig's job.
One piece at a time.
Keep it straight, right?
But I think you're all unanimous, your agreement on the occupancy, right?
Yeah.
Leave it at 3, allow the family plus 1.
Yeah, and just to also mention, I know I spoke with Tom, and I think some of you might have spoken with Tom as well, who's not here today, and he was also against increasing from 3 to 4.
Okay.
Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, he told me to call him if we needed to. He said, I'll get on the phone.
Sounds like Tom.
So if,
Drug-induced state, yeah.
should we take a vote on just that piece, that portion of that?
I think Amy was going to make a motion with an amendment, correct?
I don't think you need to. I think you can wrap that up in your final decision of what you're going to do. I understand we'll change the definite, or we'll change it 1762, the language that you suggested.
To have it be 3.
It's a really simple, it's a simple wordsmith.
Yeah, this is not the final vote for the entire thing. This is just.
But you can
for
take that off the list and go to the second item.
Yeah, for that piece. So.
Okay.
All I know is my husband just texted me, he's gonna cook me a burger when I get home, so.
Wow, is that like I need to
He must
hurry?
be watching Zoom and going, Amy's starting to look angry.
Yeah.
Can we all get one as well?
Yeah.
So,
We need 8 burgers, please.
so, I guess I would prefer, I don't know how to, but do we want to talk about everything at once? What do we want to do? We've made one decision.
Let's go to density bonuses.
Yeah.
What the council's.
So
This
could
is-
you talk to me, well, maybe this is not a change. There is a change in the use table, or in the, where is it? I'm gonna go back. In the definition, you know, the one pager for density that talks about height increases. It's right here. Town Center 1 development standards, building height bonus as per chapter 1734 permits an additional 24 feet of building height.
What page are you on, Jeannie?
I'm on,
I think it's 23.
I'm on the 1710-060, Town Center 1 development standards. So would you walk through what that looks like, please?
Yeah, those already exist. So that's just, I put a reference in the use, in this spec sheet back to 1734 where those standards are already in place. So I'm not adding anything new, other than here's a reference to go look in 1734. And the language of 1734, we currently permit density bonuses and height bonuses in the TC1. So the base density is 70 units to the acre. You get a density bonus.
70?
70. In TC1, you can get a density bonus of 15 for superior design, 30 for structured parking, 40 for superior design and structured parking. So the maximum density is 85 to 115. Maximum height is 55 to 80. You get a height bonus, 12 to 24 feet. So the maximul height with the bonus is 104 feet. So this has already been adopted. We want to incentivize development downtown in the TC1. And the only language that I added under building height from that spec sheet is just to reference that.
Okay, but what I want to know is you've got all these criteria that give you a density bonus or give you a height bonus. So how does the low and moderate income piece fit into that? Is that an add-on? Is it you can have one of the above, but not all? Is it, because it makes it sound like you can have, the density bonus, and then you have a height bonus, and
So
then
the short answer is no. It doesn't apply because the proposal is not to allow for a moderate income housing density bonus in TC1. So it's two
Okay.
separate
Okay.
trains of thought on density bonuses.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So maybe the question is, do you like the 5% requirement to get 25% density increase. As the one that was proposed,
I would prefer the higher,
The 2010. I like the 2010 too.
so you like the 2010?
Yeah.
Amy?
That gives you 10, that gives you 10%.
I would prefer the 2010.
Yeah.
The question is anyone going to build?
Is
to
it enough incentive? Yeah, so that's the
Is it a
question.
big enough
I
carrot?
think we would prefer the 10% of the lower income units.
well,
but
the
can
one
we-
thing you
is
can
it
do
enough of an
is you
incentive?
put the 2010 in, and if nobody bites on it, then you reevaluate
Go to
it.
25.
And it's income restricted at 80% AMI, correct, for this? Or is this?
I thought it was 50.
50%.
80 is
Is
the
mixed
mixed
use,
use,
the
this would be
yeah.
50.
Yeah,
Okay.
given it's 50, maybe you
Yeah.
need to
I
put that
like,
incentive.
I like that suggestion, Amy. We start there, and if we don't have any bites, then we incentivize a little bit more.
Or
Well, then we-
if we hear
We'll bring
from
it back.
potential projects that
Yeah.
that's an issue.
Yeah.
I think I would rather do what we feel is appropriate first and see whether it turns out to be really
There's
appropriate.
got to be enough units to pay for the 10%. But I think if we do the 20, hopefully that will cover it. And if it doesn't, then we can look at
Because
it.
I think that you're building a project that is already at X amount of units. You've already done your pro formas, and you know that that project will pay for itself or bring you the return that you require. And then if you can add 20% to that, and you won't, there's a bug.
Yeah, bucks over bucks.
There's,
We need to get a contract.
and if you, sorry. So if you add 20%,
I really need a burger.
You probably got a height bonus and you know, I mean, so you,
Not yet.
and building that extra 20% is not as much as starting with that, starting from scratch, is what I'm saying. And then if you have, anyway, that's what I believe.
So you
We
all
still
three,
have a whole thing to do here.
you all three said you like the 10% requirement for 20% increase.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
is,
Second one.
which is kind of reducing on both ends.
Yeah.
Increasing the requirement and reducing the
Yes.
bonus.
Yes.
Do any of you want to do 10% requirement for 25 increase?
I like the
So
2010.
you want to stick
I
with
think the
it?
2010.
Yeah, I like
for
the
me.
2010.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's
all
good.
right.
And like I said, if we
Good
have,
thinking outside the box.
if we have a project that comes,
I can't wait to hear the audio for this.
yeah. Some good jokes.
So,
All right, so on to, do you want to keep
No, no.
discussing this or
no,
you're?
we're done.
Thank
Did we get them all?
We're good with that
We
one.
got them all.
All right, on to
Micro.
any more micro units, any more comments on that, any more discussion?
Okay, Amy made a good argument. I'll take a chance on that. Somebody's got to build some to see how it works.
I mean, I have no idea if they will.
Yeah.
I do know that, I sat on some screening committees this year for some of the OHS grants, the Office of Homeless Service grants, and some of the projects that are happening in other parts of the state can't happen here because we don't have this. So
Yeah.
I do believe that there are
Because
developers.
you don't have a micro
Because we
thing?
don't have a micro. There are projects that were approved in other parts of the state that rely on this kind of micro unit where developers are willing to do that because, especially if they can get some of the tax, can build some Section 8 housing, it makes more sense for them. And right now, we don't really have anything that would incentivize somebody to come and do something of this.
And with the restrictions that we have, it's not going to happen in a residential section. It's going to happen somewhere.
Correct.
So from what you know about this type of development, does having a requirement of only 3/4 of a vehicle parking per unit. How big of a problem is that?
I don't think it's a big problem for this population because you're looking at people that can, they cannot afford much, and the fact that, community development wrote this, I think, very wisely with it needs to be proximate to employers, it needs to be proximate to transportation, it needs to be proximate to bike trails. I think that will eliminate it.
Well, these are minimum too. You may find a developer thinks that he needs more parking to make it work, just based on his demographic surveys and stuff. But the idea is you're targeting folks that can't afford a car, that can't afford market rate rent, that need to walk to work, ride a bike to work, ride a bus to work.
But only a portion of them are going to be required to be that.
Yeah, you want to get a mix. So remember we had Callaway Partners looking at a project downtown. His advice when looking at low-income housing, for lack of better terms, was integrate into a bigger project. It's better to integrate a wide range of folks with a wide range of incomes and a wide range of stages of life. It works better. That way there's not a stigma associated with that project only serves poor people.
Right.
So,
but what I'm saying is you've got that portion of the renters with their 0.75 parking stalls will probably not have a vehicle, and then the portion that's market rate may have a
Which is
vehicle.
25%.
And is what?
25%.
25%
is market rate.
Is the max for market rate.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many units you end up in a space, but
I think that'll self-correct, because if you don't have enough units or have enough parking for the people that are, let's move.
I mean, one would hope that individuals that need this level of support in terms of affordable housing, they're employed, they'll be able to achieve a larger apartment over time.
Yeah.
They'll be able to walk to work,
somewhere
they'll
else,
be able to take the bus to work, and they'll be able to move into higher price, into market rate housing over time.
Yeah.
The goal isn't to keep people in extremely affordable housing.
How many times have you moved, Amy?
In my life,
Yeah, just how many times have you moved? I'm just curious.
well, 3 here in the last 18 years.
So you're pretty transient.
I'm relatively transient, and I'm a renter. Can
Yeah, I
you believe
know.
it?
And you're a renter too. That was my other question. So,
I've moved 4 times in 50 years.
yeah. People move
I
from.
moved 10 times.
Yeah. You're even more transient.
In 18 years, you've moved 10 times?
Well,
In my life, I've probably moved 15 times.
15.
Mexico, I moved 2 times, plus moving to the US 3 times,
I
plus
think-
moving a couple times in Idaho 5 times, plus moving here as a student
I think-
like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, I think we forget sometimes that really good neighbors that we love and have grown to appreciate are very transient.
Does that mean you really love me? Mark?
I do. I think some of the people I associated with when we first moved into our home, and also that were students. They had small families that were starting just like ours, and I built relationships with them that have lasted for decades, and they were very transient. It all depends on our attitude and the way we're looking at people sometimes. So just, I don't know, my soapbox comment for today.
So I would be willing to move that we approve KC ordinance 23-32 with the removal of the moving from 3 to 4, and with the density bonus at the 20%, the 20% bonus with 10% housing, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Did I get it all?
You got it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Did you get all?
Family plus 1, that definition is still in there.
Yes, correct.
Yes. So just to review, family plus 1 stays. Increasing 3 to 4 goes away. Density bonus of 20% with a 10% requirement, and yes to the micro units as it was proposed. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, please say nay. Ordinance 23-32 passes as amended.
Very good. I like that.
thank you everyone who joined us for that item. Next up in our action items, we have a public hearing for budget adjustments. Rich, would you review those?
4 items to consider. The first is the request to appropriate $396 for a library Wi-Fi hotspot grant. Second is a request to appropriate $11,610 for the bulletproof vest grant from our police department. Request to appropriate $6,250 for a public works training event where other entities participated, gave contributions, paid the first part of the event. And lastly, a request to appropriate restricted funds of $248,584 from our 911 fund for radios, which is the purpose for which those funds were requested.
That's your $3 a month.
That's your $3 a month, and oh, by the way, that does spend all available reserves.
In that,
Except those that we've built up this year,
Yeah.
potentially.
Are you okay with that?
I'm totally okay with that,
Okay,
since they're restricted.
gotcha. You can only use them for a couple things.
The comments, discussions
No.
before?
No comments.
This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment on this specific item on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence. Keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
This time I'm just Gail B. Yost, and I live in Logan. I'm just wondering how many bulletproof vests $11,000 would buy?
How many?
One.
They're roughly $1,200 a piece.
My brother is a retired sheriff's deputy in Pinellas County, Florida. And he had to wear his vest even the hottest times of the year because even though it's the St. Petersburg area where there's supposed to be a lot of retirees, that's not what he found in his area. And so can't we find a way of getting more money for these vests? They're so important.
Well, they rotate. Everybody has one, but then you rotate through them, so they buy a few every year instead of buying all of them at once and then having to buy all of them at once again.
Well, I understand that, but it just seems like $11,610 is not going to go very far, and I'd like to see more grants or whatever we can get because we all need the protection of good police officers who are alive and not hospitalized.
Thank you, Gail.
So all of our officers do have bulletproof
Yes,
vests, though? Okay,
everyone.
thank you for clarifying that.
And it's just a partnership grant, so we put money into it as well.
Right, that's 50% of the cost.
Okay.
We'll bring it back to the council.
I move acceptance of resolution 2345.
I'll second that.
It's being moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Against, please say nay. Resolution 23-45 passes. That is it for our action items for tonight. Next, we have 3 workshop items. First up, we have Resolution 23-49 with Russ Aquina for Parks and Recreation.
Hi, Kimber.
You didn't see him hiding back
I
there?
didn't see him hiding back there.
He's been there for a long time.
Yeah. He thought we were going to go faster.
You were
I just,
distracted.
Should have known better.
Russ's sparkling smile made me glance over there, and I saw Kimber.
Poor Russ has had to sit here through the whole meeting,
Me
too.
too, yeah. Go Russ.
When I started feeling sorry for myself, I had to remember that Kirk was going to be here longer than that.
Sure is. I'll wave Kirk.
Thankfully, this is only 4 pages long, so.
Yeah. Okay. I'm presenting for consideration. Of course, this is workshop sessions or desires to come back in 2 weeks for a public hearing. But in preparation for the Mall Plaza ice rink, we have 2 different fee components that involve winter activity there in the plaza. One is the ice rink, of course, but also the rental of ice skates for the rink there at the plaza. And so what staff has done is they've reached out to different facilities, as you see listed in your packet, in terms of helping us to develop what you have before you as our recommendation for one, rink time, and then the other is for ice skate rentals. So I just walk through briefly on what we're proposing here in terms of the Law Plaza ice rink. We're looking at a amount of time for a session that we can then put a fee to. And the idea is to run the sessions through from the time we open, and as you see here on the list here, we're looking at running from Monday through Friday from 4 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And then Saturday and Sunday, Saturday noon to 9:30 p.m. and Sunday noon to 5:30 p.m. In that block of time, we're proposing to have a session amount of time to then put our proposed fee to. So, for instance, if you were coming to skate and during any of these times that we have here, we'd be looking at, as we currently have posted, an hour and a half block of time that a person would pay for the use of the rink. Then if they needed skates, they would rent that. And right now, well, at this stage, we're proposing that the skate rentals be at $3 for a pair of skates. Now, when we had the Merlin Olsen ice rink running, we did also have skate rentals there as well. I do not remember how much we were charging.
What? You don't remember?
Since
I was like, why do we have to approve it if we were already doing
It's only
it?
been a decade since we've had the ice skating rink working.
Something like that, yeah. One thing that we have had discussion about, and perhaps you as a council may want to weigh in on this, in terms of how long the sessions should be. You know, right now we're showing it as 90 minutes, and in talking with folks who are supportive of that, they gave me a number of different reasons why. In my mind, I'm thinking that may be a little too long, maybe more along the lines of 60 minutes. So something for you to consider as we nail this down in the next 2 weeks.
So Russ, what's the maximum occupancy of skaters on that space? Because I think that kind of ties into the amount of time that you allow, the duration.
Yeah, great question. It's somewhere between 120 and 150
That can
people
fit at one time?
during any given session. And that would be the most, and we would presume that
all going in a little.
that would represent general use,
About the
right?
size of this room.
So if you were doing lesson, you certainly wouldn't want to have that many
It's
people.
not as big as Merlin Olsen, but it should be fun.
Okay, okay.
It's about as big as this room, isn't it, Mayor?
I think it's a little longer than this.
You can get
Yeah, anyway.
9 people comfortably standing shoulder to shoulder with a gap between each of them for the width, 9 people abreast. And somewhere around 12 to 13 rows of people.
But what if
in
you're
that
like
oval.
me and you're like laying flat on your back and you just have the space of 12 people?
Then you might have other skaters that trip over you. Yeah.
Okay, so it's at 120, 150 people.
Somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah. Now, with that, because we're nearing the stage of preparing the rink, we were hoping to, so long as the weather can cooperate with us, to do a test run. And we were looking towards having the city employees as our guinea pigs.
Oh, there's your chance, Amy.
So like I said, if this works out, we'll send a text or an email out, and again, we might just offer city employees free skating for one night to come help us figure all this out.
Was the rental for the little kitty walker?
As available.
$3 as long as they're available.
So I just have a question. It's $5 per person, 90-minute session. We need to decide whether 60 or 90 is the right number.
And our
for that?
recommendation probably is just X amount per session. Then administratively they can adjust. It's probably the best thing. Unless you feel it's super strong, it should be 59 minutes.
Okay.
So what you're saying is we can just do $5 per person per session, and then the session time can be posted there.
Yeah.
So if we realize 90 minutes is too long, we can adjust it to 60 or
Otherwise
whatever.
we have to come back to you and amend it, and that's probably fine.
And we don't want to talk about it.
And then the Monday family night, you have, it says $15 Monday family night, and then it says $3 up to 5 members.
How that-
Skate rental.
Right.
So is that like, is it $15 family night up to 5 individuals?
Yes.
And then a free skate rental for each person?
Right. And if you have more than that, it's $3 a person in that.
Oh, okay.
group. Yeah.
Yeah, that was confusing to me.
It is. Yeah. It doesn't read that way, but that was our intent.
So if you decide you want to bring your family of 12 people, you pay $15 for the first 5 and $21 for the next 7, and they'd all get free skate rentals?
Yes.
Okay.
$36.
Were we going to do a group rate? So if someone brings a group of youth or, whatever, just so you can get a discount if you bring a...
Yes, we will. We've had a number of inquiries, just in regards to that very thing, in terms of what the price would be for a group rate. And we've seen from some of the other places that we've polled, there are some group rate packages that they offer. We just haven't plugged that into ours yet.
Okay.
Yeah, the Galvin, it's $1 off per person if you have 20 to 50 people.
Right.
And this doesn't cover those parameters, like saying you need to reserve if it's this many people. We don't need to approve those. We're just have to approve the rate, the price.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
And this is typically referred to as general public time. We're working through policy in terms of rentals or facility use for exclusive types of activities. All those sorts of things still have to be fleshed out. This is just for public time to ice skate.
Okay.
Did you guys consider having like a student?
The student rate.
Yeah.
There's a child rate.
And there's the old people rate that I get.
Yeah.
Old people rate only if you have insurance to get on the ice.
And you use the walker.
Proof of insurance required?
To your question, we don't show that here. A student would fall under that $5 rate unless they're less than 3, military, or over 60.
Okay.
But I get your point. We have not.
Okay.
Maybe $4 off.
Okay. So the other is with regards to the golf course, Logan River Golf Course. We are proposing, as you see attached in your packet, a slight increase in our fees, everything from green fees, the driving range, and the combination of green fees and golf cart. And like the ice rink, we've also reached out to other courses and clubs to get comparisons in regards to what we are proposing. And so just for a couple of things that I will point out with this, currently for 18 holes, or green fee for 18 holes is currently at $36. We're proposing to move that to $38 for 18 holes, and for 9 holes to move it to $19 from 18 holes where it currently is.
Can I ask a question? Why does the junior driving range pass require a season golf pass? And nothing else does?
Jeannie, I'll have to research that one. When I was putting this together, that was the notation on here. And I had a question to ask of that because I didn't know the answer to that. So I'll research.
I would be curious because it, seems like we're asking the juniors to spend $600 and the adults can do the same thing for $550.
You need to practice.
Well, you can go every single day that you want to go.
I'll find that out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Good deal.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jean. Kids have to pay more than the adults.
That's a good deal.
I don't want to speculate on that. A lot of the juniors that we have are part of high school golf teams. And with their fee comes the use of the driving range. I don't know if there was a distinction for that, but I'll find out exactly what that answer is. Yeah. Any other questions on either?
No, they seem pretty reasonable.
We do need to make sure we get Tom's input into this because he usually has a strong opinion about the golf fees.
He may be watching us online, who knows? If he's lasted
He's
this
true
long.
statement. Oh, he's a true statement. He does have strong opinions on the golf.
Here.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Russ.
Golf course to remain profitable.
Next up, we have budget adjustments.
Rich, you get to go too.
A whole bunch to consider. First is a request to appropriate $80,000 as a reimbursement for special inspection services. This is related to one large vendor who is putting in fiber across the city, and as part of their agreement is paying for the inspection of that trench and other stuff built appropriately.
Didn't we just pass those fees recently?
We did.
Yeah.
And so this is what's a portion of what's been collected. We'll do a few of these because we'll have to get the amount of funding that we need to complete that project. I just didn't want to guesstimate it. $20,329 for police overtime reimbursements, which is fairly regularly done. $100,000 as a loan forgiveness from the state of Utah specifically for a water and lead service line inventory. This is a little bit strange. It has the legal form or the technical form of a loan and the function of a grant. So they're giving us these funds in order to do this inventory. However, we have to kind of record it as a loan initially, which will later be forgiven. We anticipate this will all be wrapped up in this fiscal year. To a certain extent, it's substance over form. This is really a grant. But I'm anticipating we're going to have to account for this as a loan that we took out during the year that we subsequently paid back through the forgiveness. So anyway, that's unusual, but it's unusual because that's the way the state wants to do it. And we're grateful for the $100,000. A request to appropriate $800,000 of risk management reserves for contingent legal fees associated with the Woodsonia development.
You missed 32,784.
The traffic study.
Public Works.
32,784 for traffic studies related to development. One of those is the Woodsonia development. $800,000 for the contingent legal fees, a request to appropriate $60,000 of reserves from our golf course fund for additional credit card fees. Our revenues have been going up, so our credit card fees, we need to appropriate some of those revenues toward those credit card fees. At the same time, there are also supply budgets that we need to replenish. There's a minor maintenance project and then a capital project. A very small portion of that is kind of delineated there, if you're interested. And lastly is a request to appropriate $390,000 for the after-school program. This will fund after-school programs at the Adams, Bridger, Ellis, and Woodruff elementaries. We do this one each year. We get several of these from various sources. I'm not 100% sure where this one's coming from. Could be the school district, I'm not sure.
No, I think isn't that federal money that Tara got through that grant, or has that one already been appropriated?
We do get one passed through the school to us, and I think we get 2 others, but I'm not sure which one this one is. Nonetheless, it's a grant for after-school program.
So I know the question typically comes up with this is there a differentiation between the different schools and what amounts they get, so maybe having that information available at our next meeting would be helpful.
Russ went down.
So there's 6 schools that are under contract with the state. So this is federal money, but it has a pass-through to the Department of Workforce Services. And part of this goes through the school district and is disseminated that way since we're in their schools. And the reason I'm saying this is because, as you were saying, they are on 2 different schedules. So I think there's 5 that are on here this time around, but all 6 are participating.
Okay.
They're just on different schedules.
And all the funds are the same between the 4 schools? Is it equal pot of money that goes to each of the schools?
Yes, because the programs are about the same.
Okay.
Different levels of participation, but they are the same program.
All right, great, thank you. That was my only question.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Rich. And you also have the next one.
So about 10 years ago, we fairly significantly revamped our purchasing ordinance. The thing that guides us and helps us to make sure we're spending appropriately and there's the appropriate amount of oversight. At that time, we increased our thresholds quite substantially from what they were. It's now time, nearly 10 years later, to do it again. Inflation over the last 3 years has significantly changed how much goods or services you can buy with the amount of money that we, or the thresholds that we have. Currently, 0 to 5,000 requires departments to obtain 3 quotes, although they do not have to get a purchase order. 5,001 to 50,000, the department gets written bids, submits those to the purchasing department. The purchasing department creates a purchase order, and then the department is able to proceed. And then over 50,000, we do what we refer to as formal bidding, which is done by the purchasing department, usually through sealed bids, and it's very controlled. What we're finding, what we found, is that we're having vendors who do not want to go through the process of having to get a sealed bid together, print it in color, make it as nice as they can because they want to wow us for a project that is $50,000. It's cost prohibitive. So we're getting some pushback there. Not to mention, it's more difficult to find those vendors. So if you have a few that don't participate, then you don't have as much competition. That's probably hurting the city. So our proposal is to change this purchasing ordinance, along with some other fairly insignificant changes, but we can go over those if you'd like. For 0 to 5,000, the departments do not have to obtain bids, but they are obligated to give the best value for the city. From 5,000 to 10,000, the department would obtain quotes, would not have to get a PO, but they would have to get quotes and make the best purchase. That would be subsequently audited by the finance department periodically to make sure that we have compliance. 10,000 to 100,000 would be the departments obtaining 3 written bids, coordinating with legal and the finance department to make sure they've met all of the requirements. They'd then be issued a purchase order and they could proceed. And then everything over 100,000 would have to go through formal bidding procedures unless there was an exception that's otherwise noted in the code.
Okay.
We believe this would give us flexibility. Anytime you raise thresholds, there's always the concern is this going to increase abuse. I don't think it will. Frankly, our previous code, because our thresholds were so small, we had more and more non-compliance. And when you have more non-compliance and you allow it to continue as though there's nothing wrong with it, that actually increases abuse and the likelihood that we'll have a serious fraud or something else happen that we want to try to avoid.
Yep.
I believe by increasing these thresholds, we'll have the ability to better monitor what's happening. Not to mention, that initial stage of, prior to this, we said 0 to 5,000, you had to have 3 quotes. Well, it's really impractical if you're going to get a $10 part in order to, fix a radiator or something. Getting 3 bids is really problematic. The federal code allows it to go from 0 to 10,000 for what they refer to as micro purchases, which is you don't need to get a quote, just make sure you're spending the resources appropriately. Many cities around us also go from 0 to 5,000. We feel like this is an appropriate adjustment to our purchasing code. We will be monitoring it. We don't allow, just because they don't have to get a bid doesn't mean they can go waste taxpayer funds. That's unacceptable regardless of the dollar limit. But we will give them flexibility in order to get business done without going through an onerous process that they may try to avoid in the future.
So I'm looking at this. So A is the over 5, then B is the over 10.
Sorry.
So procedure, it's A is over 5. And
procedure A is 0 to 5,
and then it goes 5 to 10, and then 10 to 100.
10 to 100, yes.
Okay.
And we also threw some language in there about CMGC. We think CMGC fits into our code. We want to kind of explicitly make sure it's in there.
Okay.
That we do allow CMGC when the process is right. That does require us to rely on a contractor, the general contractor who we've selected through hopefully competitive bidding. It does allow them to do some bidding for us. We just want to make sure that was in our code and we reference it. And then we've kind of taken out certain things and crossed out some words that are problematic. There are a couple sections that the wording is problematic. It's not the concept, such as, if we buy real property, that needs to be in the budget. Yeah, that's something that is required that it be appropriated prior to being spent. However, this language said it had to kind of be explicitly in there, and that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it's in there by a project. We're going to do, for instance, the water tank project, but we don't have in there that we need to buy land from the university. So I'm striking the language simply to allow us to move forward. It's clear it has to be in the budget.
So Rich, when things are purchased through the state purchasing contract, does that eliminate the need for you to do all the rest of this?
It eliminates portions of it. They still need to get a purchase order, but it's one of the exceptions, it's H.
Yeah.
That says the state contractor goods are exempt from competitive bidding because they've already been bid.
Right.
But we do need to still get a purchase order, so we want them to run through and make sure that we've met any legal requirements and any other statutory requirements, but it is one of the exceptions. And you'll see that we added I as well. H and I were kind of blended together where we said we can rely on other people's bidding procedures as long as they're substantially equivalent. But we wanted to make sure that that was a separate section so that it's not assumed that it's only the state that can do our bidding for us. We need to rely on others as well.
Okay.
Sorry, Fox Elderbug.
Specifically other cities who do bidding, maybe we piggyback with them.
Okay.
Or even other entities.
Okay.
So I don't need to submit a bid for the $30 part. Public Works needs to fix the snow blower for this winter.
We're not going to have to do that. Now, here's the problem, they weren't doing it anyway. And so it was, like we were saying, it's okay to violate our code. Well, this kind of codifies it that, no, this is an acceptable level of not getting bids.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. That is it for our workshop items. Other considerations?
I'm sorry to extend this one more minute, but I know your burger's waiting, but despite the disrespectful and rude comments of Mrs. Bennett, and the false assumption that we don't care about recycling, I've already reached out to Isa, and he's looking at what we can do now that we have distanced ourselves from the county and we have control over our own solid waste, to start taking a look at that so we can bring it back to the council to look at plastic bags and what we can do. Bring us some options. I hope you're okay with that.
You've already done it, we're okay with it.
Thank you. I think it's timely now that we've had to split with the
I
counties.
mean, we've only just had to split for a month, so it's not like we're dawdling.
No, timing is I think appropriate right now, so good with that.
Anything else, Jeannie? No?
Nope.
Well, we'll adjourn our city council meeting and reconvene for our redevelopment agency meeting. And we have an action item and a workshop item today. Kirk.
Okay, good evening, council, or RDA board, I should say. Since we're meeting as the agency right now. So what you have in front of you is the resolution that would essentially formalize the agency's assistance in the Cache Valley, Woodsonia Cache Valley LLC project, which is, discussed in different ways over the past several months. Again, this project would be a total redevelopment of the Cache Valley Mall, which is seen at the top portion of this map. This is a map of the 1400 North Main Community Reinvestment Project area. So the mall's about half of the acreage of that total area, about 25.5 acres. So in previous meetings, you as the agency and the city have approved the project area, the budget's been approved, and all of the taxing entities, meaning specifically the city, I see we still have our school district friends with us, and the county, all three of those entities in October committed their tax increment for this project area. And thanks, I just want to extend a thank you to school district in particular, but also the council and the county for supporting what should be a great project. Just to refresh all of our memories a little bit, I know we've seen this a number of times, but this is the site plan of the Cache Valley Mall redevelopment, anchored by a big box national retail national retail store there in red, 150,000 square feet. There's also a 4-story hotel, about 21,000 square feet of additional commercial space, and 346 apartment units.
So Kurt,
Yeah.
just relating to an earlier comment at the beginning of the meeting, that things appear without people knowing what's coming.
The specific stores.
Yeah, the specific stores. When we contract with a developer, they negotiate for a person to fill the space, and we are not a part of that negotiation. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct.
And so they won't tell anyone until they have secured the appropriate commitments from whomever it is.
That's correct. I will say, just to add to what you just said, which was correct, in relation to the big box store, we will have in the development agreement a stipulation where if it's not a specific retailer that's been discussed, then basically, the entire agreement between the agency and the developer would need to be renegotiated, so.
Oh, okay, okay. 'Cause
We're just not at liberty to say who that is.
Right.
At this point in time.
But that will not apply to the hotel, correct?
Correct. Nor the 21,000 square feet of commercial space.
Right,
That's
the
underneath.
separate,
Right.
the separate commercial space.
Yep.
Because it's up to them to make that project work, and they may have to, maybe they talked to Marriott, but Holiday Inn was the right one.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. All right, there's an early version or early rendering that was put out by the developer. Of course, subsequent to this rendering, there's been a lot of rework, if you will, in terms of adding green space and adding more beauty to it, that sort of thing. So the resolution really encapsulates these 3 bullet points that Woodsonia, under the development agreement, would receive 100% of the available tax increment, capped at just over $10 million as shown there. In addition, the affordable housing set-asides that would be generated by their project, they would receive all of 100% of those monies too, capped at $1,180,000. And then the third item is they would receive $500,000 from the agency's affordable housing fund. So those are the 3 the 3 agreements that would essentially be made.
So is this affordable housing at the 80% level?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you,
it's
Kimberly.
80%.
And once they have received the reserves and the money from the agency, they will still be required over time beyond, say 10 years, 15 years, they will still be required to have those affordable units.
Yep.
They will have to be part of the project forever, right?
For the duration of the
Thank
RDA,
you,
which is
Mary.
20 years.
20 years.
Okay. After 20 years, they do not have to be?
The contract stipulates
That's
for
correct.
20 years the amount of the RDA.
20 years of the
It's
life.
It's the length of the
RDA.
RDA.
Okay.
For the CRAPA.
Okay.
And just a reminder that 10% of those units, so we're looking at 34 units that would be income targeted.
Okay.
And they would be blended, seamlessly into the entire project.
Okay.
This is just a by-the-way slide. It's not anything we're approving tonight, but I thought it was worth mentioning that the city is also, which you're aware of, is also committing other forms of assistance to this project. Rich, in his budget resolution comments, just previously mentioned the contingent legal fees of $800,000. Beyond those, there are various fee waivers that have been committed, which are roughly totaling about $2.5 million. So all told, about $3.8 million in other assistance.
It's worth noting you won't appropriate the fee waivers because we won't collect those.
We just won't collect them.
Or we'll collect them and give them back immediately. So they won't be easy to appropriate.
Okay. And then, as highlighted in the resolution that you got for this meeting, some of the public benefits, just summarized there. First, revitalization of an underutilized site. Obviously, through property taxes and sales taxes, the tax base is strengthened. New jobs will be an obvious outcome. Creation of new housing and affordable housing, which we talked about. And then this project will serve as a catalyst for additional development and also just general business growth in that area of town. So that is my presentation, unless you have questions. Vanessa?
I'll question. I think I might have asked something similar at some point. I can't remember what the answer was. So in the resolution here, it says, Woodsonia will receive 100% of the available property tax increment generated. It's a project annually during the life of the CRPA, not to exceed $10,000,000. In one of the other instances, we got a schedule of the annual amounts
The
that
annual
were
what?
projected to be generated?
Yes, yeah, that are projected to be generated. Are those annual caps for how much they could get up to that amount, or
It's a cumulative 20-year cap.
this right here?
Yeah.
So if they got all of it in year one, they're done?
They're
They're
done,
done, okay.
which would be amazing.
Yeah. For everybody.
Because then everybody would get
So
them
there-
after that, yeah.
Staff would be excited.
School district would never complain about that. They paid it off in the first year.
That got paid off in 1 year? Throw a party.
Get done, shut it down, move on.
Pizza party at city council.
No, pizza party at Logan Board of Education. They're paying for it.
Set up a slip and slide out behind Logan High.
All over it, okay.
They'll even bust out the helium balloons.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No public hearing.
No public hearing.
I would move approval of resolution 23-46 RDA.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, please say nay. Resolution 23-46 RDA passes. And last but not least, Kirk, we have budget adjustment workshop item.
Oh, yeah. Glad you reminded me. I thought I was done.
Well, you already told us
Cameron, you want
about
to cover?
it. You already told us about it.
Yeah, we did. So essentially this.
Sayonara.
That was easy. You guys should have done it sooner.
Bye, Jennifer.
Come anytime.
So no real explanation needed on Resolution 23-48 RDA. It's what was stated before. It's $500,000 being appropriated towards the Woodsonia development, and that's part of that total assistance package that we referred to earlier.
Okay. I don't have any questions.
Random question, how long did it take us to collect 500,000 for affordable housing?
Well, we have that, I mean, that's monies that have been earned over several years. And granted, we've had multiple project areas throughout Logan City, South Main, North Main, Automall, et cetera, that, and not all of those have a statutory affordable housing set-aside requirement. Some of them do, and so for those that have had a requirement, just every year we just take that 10% of that tax increment being generated within that particular project area. We set it aside into the Affordable Housing Fund, and that and future monies that will continue to come in, as well as some land holdings, all of those sources. And when I say land holdings, we've spent some affordable housing monies on properties that we own currently. Whenever those perhaps are sold, those also are a source of these affordable housing funds. But there's, to answer your question again, they've been brought in over a number of years and will continue to do so.
But it is worth noting, this is kind of the end of it. Now, as we liquidate property and as we kind of wrap some of these RDAs up, we may have small amounts, but this is kind of it. We're kind of done, but it's a good project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any emotional outbursts?
Not this time.
At this time. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.
I'll save that for next time.
Thanks, Ernesto.
Thanks, Ernesto.
Why is it that? I don't know what it is.